After divorcing with a child, my reborn ex-husband seeks reconciliation. Chuang was killed in a man-made car accident, and his soul wandered around his ex-wife. He watched his ex-wife collect his body and find the real murderer for him. In the end, she died in a car accident like him. In the previous life, whether it was divorce or marriage, the woman he didn't care about turned out to have always loved him. In this new life, he will not let go of any of those who owed him and Jiang Jiran 2 lives. As for Jiang Jiran, it's wishful thinking to divorce and run away. Chapter 1, Help me find someone as quickly as possible. Groaning and clutching his aching head, Chuang slowly opened his eyes. Where am I? The surroundings felt both strange and familiar. As his vision cleared, Chuang suddenly jumped out of bed, his eyes wide in disbelief as he stared at the room. Was this the house where he had once married Jiang Jiran? He had sold this place long ago. How could he be here? With this thought in mind, Chuang rushed to the mirror and looked at the person reflected. His face was pale, and his eyes still red. This was clearly the youthful version of himself. Hadn't he died already? Died in that man-made car accident. He vividly remembered that after his death, his soul drifted aimlessly, eventually drifting to his ex-wife, Jiang Jiran, who had divorced him long ago. He saw Jiang Jiran kneeling at the door of the operating room, begging the doctor to save him. He saw her crying loudly at the crematorium, facing his body about to be cremated. He saw her at his grave, muttering that she didn't believe he died by accident and that she would find the truth for him. However, before Jiang Jiran could uncover the truth, Chuang witnessed her being hit by a car one night while she was out searching for clues, dying on the spot. As a soul, Chuang hadn't had time to mourn when a gust of wind blew, knocking him unconscious. When he woke up, he found himself mysteriously back in his old house. Was this a rebirth? Chuang rummaged through the room for a long time before finally finding his phone under the bed. When he opened it, the date May 21, 2016 stared back at him, glaringly obvious. Chuang had followed the trend back then, making sure to get a divorce from Jiang Jiran on May 20th. He remembered how after the divorce, he went to a bar with some friends to celebrate his newfound single status, drinking the whole night away. No wonder his head hurt so much. Oh no! It dawned on Chuang that he had been reborn the day after his divorce with Jiang Jiran. After their divorce, Jiang Jiran had left City and didn't return until after his car accident. Had Jiang Jiran already left? Chuang quickly grabbed his phone, found Jiang Jiran's contact in the address book, and dialed her number. Hello, the number you've dialed is not in service. Please check and try again. Jiang Jiran really was ruthless, even deactivating her phone number after the divorce. It was because she had been the one to initiate the divorce, and after that, she never showed up in front of Chuang again, leading him to believe that Jiang Jiran no longer liked him. He even thought she hated and looked down on him. I really thought divorce would be a relief for you, Chuang muttered to himself as he stared at the phone. Suddenly, the phone rang, breaking the silence in the room. Seeing the number on the screen, Chuang's lips curled into a smile. Hey, I heard you got divorced. Come over and help me celebrate Jiang Jiran's freedom from you, that blind bastard. As soon as the call was answered, his good buddy Lu Qianqian's sarcastic voice came through. Lu Qianqian had helped guard his estate, fought off enemies, and investigated the truth after Chuang's death. You're temporarily divorced. Where are you? Chuang asked while searching for his car keys. Lu Qianqian on the other end seemed stunned. Did this dog of a brother even know what he was saying? What does temporarily divorced mean? Lanyang, I. Before Lu Qianqian could finish, Chuang decisively hung up the phone. What a joke! Lu Qianqian was more talkative than his grandmother, and with his sharp tongue, Chuang tried to avoid listening to him as much as possible. In his previous life, the day after his divorce, Lu Qianqian had also called him. Back then, Chuang didn't go to meet him. This time, Chuang decided to see what would happen if he didn't follow the same trajectory as in his past life and didn't go to that place. Would he still encounter that person? Chuang sent a message to his assistant, Tang Rui, and then drove himself to Lanyang. Lanyang Entertainment City, located at the outskirts of City, was notorious for being a place of indulgence and vice. People in City privately knew that Lanyang held many unknown secrets. Lanyang housed the city's most popular nightclub, offering various special services that fulfilled every need, from gambling to prostitution. Except for drugs, anything else would satisfy. The background of Lanyang was extremely complex, with all kinds of people frequenting it. To get into its nightclub, one needed an insider, otherwise, even the door wouldn't be within reach. Many businessmen from other cities, gangsters, and even government officials visited Lanyang. Everyone in C City with a bit of power knew that the owner of Lanyang was Chuang. As he drove toward Lanyang, Chuang slowly organized his chaotic thoughts. Who had tampered with his car in his past life? Who had taken the risk of crashing into Jiang Jiran that night? Was their goal only Lanyang? Did he know about it? And who had brought that person to him? Too many questions troubled Chuang. He had no idea where to start or how to make sense of it all. For now, finding Jiang Jiran and remarrying her, having children, protecting her, and growing old together were the most important things. As for the ghosts and shadows, he wouldn't take them lightly again in this life. If anyone dared to show themselves, they'd better be ready to die by his hand. He had bought their house near Lanyang for convenience, and it was only a short drive away. Chuang stood at the entrance of Lanyang, looking up at the 11-story building, feeling mixed emotions. This was his empire. He got out of the car, closed the door, and took out a cigarette, lighting it. He took a deep drag, exhaled a smoke ring, and looked up at the top floor of Lanyang, his gaze deep. After finishing the cigarette, he threw the butt on the ground and stomped it out, walking towards the front door of Lanyang. Since fate had given him a second chance, he wouldn't let anyone who harmed him and Jiang Jiran in his past life escape. He pushed open the door to the VIP room of Lanyang, and the mixed smells of alcohol, perfume, and something foul hit him. Chuang frowned and glanced inside. The table was covered with all sorts of liquor, red, white, yellow, all sorts. Men and women were huddled together, leaning drunkenly. Yi, you're here. Lu Chen, quick to spot him, immediately pushed the girl in his arms away and trotted toward Chuang with a flattering smile. Chuang didn't even glance at Lu Chen. He walked straight to the corner of the room, where a middle-aged man was making out with a heavily made-up woman on the sofa. Lu Chen looked puzzled as he watched Chuang. He couldn't understand when his friend had developed a taste for watching others be affectionate. Just as he was about to reach out to tap Chuang on the shoulder, Chuang sidestepped and pulled the girl out of the man's arms. The man, whose fun was interrupted, was about to blow up, but when he saw it was Chuang, he immediately wilted. Yi, what can I do for you? Chuang sat down, crossed his legs, and placed his hands on the table. His right hand gently rubbed the ring on his left hand's ring finger, his eyes filled with a fleeting tenderness. Old hey, find someone for me as quickly as possible. Once you find her, let me know where she is. Don't alert her. I'll send the details to your phone. Got it, Yi. I'll go right now. Old hey quickly grabbed the girl and left. Damn, looks like this burning desire won't be put out tonight. Lu Chen, ever curious, asked, who are you looking for? My wife. Lu Chen. Chapter 2, When Did I Fall in Love? Little sister, it's time to count the money. The supermarket in the early morning was nearly full of elderly men and women buying groceries, along with middle-aged women. The cashiers were busy starting their day's work. Jiang Jiran smiled as she took the large and small bags from an elderly woman, swiftly scanning, issuing receipts, and collecting money. Before she knew it, it was time to finish work. After buying her groceries, Jiang Jiran slowly made her way back to her rental apartment. No one would have expected that the ex-wife of the owner of C City's Lianyan Entertainment would end up working as a cashier in a supermarket. Jiang Jiran didn't expect it either. When Chuang agreed to the divorce, she had managed to remain so calm. Jiang Jiran still felt that her 3-year marriage to Chuang was nothing but a delusional fantasy, a fleeting dream. When she woke up, everyone had moved on. When did she fall in love with Chuang? That was a story even Chuang didn't know. At the age of 16, Jiang Jiran had entered the county's key high school with a rank of 147, neither good nor bad, and her grandmother was so happy she could barely contain herself. When Jiang Jiran was very young, her mother had abandoned her father because he was poor, leaving little Jiran, who had just finished her first month, alone. Her father, after losing his wife, lived a carefree life for a while, but eventually went to work in another city and remarried, leaving Jiang Jiran to grow up with her grandparents. So, her grandparents were everything to Jiang Jiran. To celebrate Jiang Jiran's acceptance into the key high school and her 16th birthday, her grandmother, who rarely went to the county town, set out early in the morning by van. In 2007, small county towns didn't have buses. To go to the county for shopping, people had to take a van. Packed in a 7-9-seat van, there were more than 10 people, cramped like sardines. It was in this crowded van that Jiang Jiran's grandmother had her pocket cut open, and her money stolen. Old people often sew inner pockets in their pants, and thieves could easily slice them open with a razor blade. When her grandmother cautiously entered the bakery to buy a cake for Jiang Jiran, who had never had a birthday cake, she discovered that the money had been stolen. She slapped her thighs in frustration and rushed out of the bakery, shouting, "My money! My money!" Since Jiang Jiran's father remarried, the money he sent had become less and less each year. All these years, her grandparents had raised her with the help of her grandfather working construction and her grandmother growing vegetables. When Jiang Jiran was accepted into the key high school, her grandparents repeatedly called Jiang Jiran's father, scolding him for many days, before he finally sent her 500 yuan as a reward for her achievement. On this trip, her grandmother had saved 200 yuan to buy her a cake and some new clothes. But the heartless thief stole it all. How long would it take her grandmother to earn back that 200 yuan through growing vegetables? Without the money, her grandmother couldn't even return home. When she rushed out of the bakery, she accidentally twisted her ankle. In a state of confusion, she sat down in a small alley next to the bakery, crying. At that moment, Chuang, who had just woken up and was going out to eat, saw her. Chuang listened to her story, and without saying a word, helped her onto his motorcycle, grabbed a cake from the bakery, and sped off to take her home. This was one of the rare moments when Chuang showed kindness. Many years later, when Chuang learned of this story, he was deeply glad he had helped Jiang Jiran's grandmother back then. This moment of kindness led Jiang Jiran to fall in love with him at first sight, and eventually, her love for him grew deeply. Even during the years when they were apart, she never forgot him and never let go until his death. Meanwhile, Jiang Jiran anxiously waited for her grandmother at the door, worrying about her. Her grandmother was illiterate and rarely went to the county, so she wasn't familiar with the area. How could it take so long for her to return home? Just when she was about to lose hope, Jiang Jiran heard the rumbling sound of a motorcycle. Before she could get a good look, the motorcycle slid to a stop right in front of her. The 18-year-old Chuang, with his trendy spiked hair, black leather jacket, and black trousers, exuded a clean, tall, and slender presence. His indifferent eyes stared at Jiang Jiran. "Ranan, here, let me help Grandma." Jiang Jiran was momentarily stunned, but then rushed to the back of the motorcycle to help her grandmother off. She kept her head down, unable to look at Chuang. The moment their eyes met earlier left her dazed. She had never seen a boy as handsome as Chuang. With his high nose bridge, thin lips, and slightly sharp eyebrows, he had cold, clear black eyes beneath them. At that time, Chuang had already been working in the underworld for a few years, and his aura was unlike that of other boys of his age. Jiang Jiran blushed instantly. However, apart from the initial indifferent glance, Chuang didn't even spare her a second look. After handing the cake to her grandmother, he quickly revved the motorcycle and sped off, kicking up dust on the country road. Later, Jiang Jiran learned from her grandmother that Chuang had been a good Samaritan. While eating cake that night, she couldn't stop thinking about his handsome face, her heart filled with countless pink bubbles. The first impression between people is truly magical. No matter how many times Jiang Jiran saw Chuang picking up beautiful girls at the high school across the street or fighting with others in the alley, she always thought of him as a good person. Even after their marriage, despite Chuang often staying out late, drinking heavily, and gambling, Jiang Jiran still held onto hope for him. Unconsciously, Jiang Jiran had returned to her rental apartment. Thinking about those past days, a deep sadness surged inside her. From falling in love with Chuang at 16, to marrying him, and now divorcing him at 25, 9 years in total was her entire youth. Jiang Jiran gently wiped the tears from her face, forcing herself to get up and start cooking. Over these years, the greatest lesson she learned was how to be strong. Chapter 3: Did you find the person I asked you to find? At this moment, while Jiang Jiran was feeling heartbroken, Chuang was shaking dice in a luxurious box at Lianyan Club with Lu Qianqian. Lu Qianqian was the typical rich second generation, relying heavily on his father, who was the largest real estate mogul in Sea City. To exaggerate a little, half of the commercial housing in Sea City had been built by his father. When commercial housing was first introduced to this small city, Lu Qianqian's father seized the policy benefits to build and sell houses, quickly becoming the largest real estate mogul in the city. Lu Qianqian, a typical rebellious son, spent his father's money indulging in a life of luxury and excess, and the entrepreneurs of Sea City would give him some face when they saw this prince. They say when you're unlucky in love, you find fortune at the casino. Damn, it's true, Lu Qianqian laughed, lifting the dice cup. Look at your luck, Jiu, it's unbelievable. Chuang leaned back on the couch, receiving a cigarette from someone beside him, and lit it, looking down. What's wrong with you, talking all formal like that? You don't know, do you, Jiu? Qianqian's been dating a college girl recently. She's from a top university, and I think she's in some literature program. Not bad, bro, you're still going for the younger ones at your age, they joked. The people around laughed at Lu Qianqian, who had no airs and enjoyed a good joke. But if it were Chuang, no one would dare joke around with him. Get lost, get lost, get lost, Lu Qianqian laughed as he cursed. What do you mean old cow eating young grass? Men are at their peak at 31, and I'm doing just fine. Har har har. Everyone burst into laughter, and Chuang couldn't help but laugh as well. Life was good now, money, time, and fun, but what he was still missing was a wife. No matter what, he had to find Jiang Jiran. In this life, he couldn't live without her. Chuang looked around in confusion, dazed. Where was he? Wasn't he just shaking dice in the Lianyan Club's box earlier? What happened after that? Chuang rubbed his head, vaguely remembering that he had gotten drunk and someone had brought him back to his house with Jiang Jiran. So, what was going on now? The fog around him slowly cleared, and his sense of smell became unusually sharp. The strong smell of disinfectant filled the air. He looked around and saw a white room, white walls, white sheets, white curtains, white ceiling. It was then that Chuang noticed Jiang Jiran lying on the white bed, looking pale, her eyes vacant as she stared out the window. Jiang Jiran, Chuang called out tentatively twice, but she didn't respond. He reached out to touch her, but his hand passed right through hers. This was a sensation he was all too familiar with. It was the feeling of being a soul after death. No one could hear his voice, see him, or feel his touch. Could it be that he hadn't really been reborn? Just then, the door opened, and someone walked in. Chuang looked up and saw the doctor had arrived at Jiang Jiran's bedside. Miss Jiang, you've overexerted yourself and have been under too much stress. You didn't get proper rest or nutrition, and your body wasn't in a good condition for pregnancy. Your progesterone levels were too low. The baby could not be saved. The doctor sighed after speaking and left the room. Chuang stood frozen, as if struck by lightning. A baby? Did he and Jiang Jiran really have a child? And he had no idea about it. He was truly the world's biggest idiot. He vaguely remembered that just over a week before their divorce, Jiang Jiran had shyly asked him if he liked children. At that time, he was playing a game and didn't think much of it, simply answering, no. He didn't really like children. He himself had weak familial ties, and for him, children were a burden. Why have them? He and Jiang Jiran had divorced because he felt he couldn't keep her, and honestly, he didn't even belong in a marriage. The concept of home was too vague for him. He didn't even want to go back to eat. What was the point of marriage if it meant keeping Jiang Jiran in a loveless relationship? Not liking children was one thing, but having a child was a whole other matter. If there was a child, he had to take responsibility as a father. Still reeling from the shock of learning about the pregnancy, Chuang suddenly heard suppressed sobs coming from the bed. Jiang Jiran curled up under the blankets, trembling like a wounded ostrich in its little nest. Jiang Jiran. Chuang longed to comfort her, to hold her, but now, he was just a soul. How foolish he had been, to have been so indifferent after their divorce and not care for so many years. If he had gone to find her sooner, would the child have been saved? Would their marriage still have hope? As he thought about this, Chuang suddenly jolted awake, his eyes wide open. He found himself back in his own bed, the wedding photos of him and Jiang Jiran hanging on the wall. He had just put them up in the past few days. For some reason, after being reborn, he remembered everything about Jiang Jiran so clearly even though he hadn't cared about it back then. He even clearly remembered that when Jiang Jiran wanted to hang their wedding photo, he had said, "Don't hang it, bad feng shui." He could still picture the way she bit her lip, looking like she was holding back tears. Suddenly, Chuang was jolted back to reality and immediately grabbed his phone to call Lao He. He dialed several times, but the calls wouldn't go through. Impatiently, he kept dialing. "Who the hell is calling me like a ghost in the middle of the night? Don't you know I'm busy? Get lost." As the call ended, Chuang could still hear the seductive voice on the other end. Chuang's eyes darkened, but his fingers continued to dial the number. This time, the call was quickly answered, and Lao He's voice sounded apologetic on the other end. "Jiu. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was you calling. If I had known, I wouldn't have dared to hang up. Is it done?" Chuang's voice was cold. Lao He didn't dare to respond, choosing to remain silent. "Did you find the person I asked you to find?" "Not yet, Jiu. Not yet." Before Lao He could finish, Chuang interrupted. "It's been this long and you're still telling me you haven't found them. It hadn't even been 2 days. Don't worry, Jiu. We've got some leads, and I'll find them as soon as possible. Let me know as soon as you have news." Just as Lao He was about to breathe a sigh of relief, Chuang's voice cut through his ear. "Your speed is a little slow, huh? Do you need a little boost?" Before Lao He could react, Chuang hung up the phone with a snap. Damn. Who the hell does Chuang think he is? Chapter 4 Wife, where are you? In front of the French window on the 18th floor, Chuang, holding a cigarette in his left hand and a can of beer in his right hand, looked at the riverside in the early morning. There was not even a ghost. Sea City has developed rapidly in recent years. The once grey streets and low buildings are gradually being renovated. There are more and more high-rise buildings, the streets have become wide roads, and the number of shops is gradually increasing. The rapid development of Sea City has also brought Chuang a wave of benefits. Jiang Jiran asked him why he chose the 18th floor. People thought it was taboo to live on the 18th floor, as if it was like living in the 18th level of hell. The price on the 18th floor was also relatively cheap in the entire building. Chuang, a poor student, although a businessman, doesn't believe in this at all. Even though they were married and had sex, he felt that he and Jiang Jiran were not familiar enough to show his weaknesses. How could he tell Jiang Jiran that he bought it just for the cheap price? No one would believe this if the boss of Lianyan said it. "Wife, where are you?" While Chuang was thinking about Jiang Jiran was tossing and turning in bed. Recently, she had been feeling uncomfortable in her stomach, and there had been a small amount of brown secretions from her lower body. She went to the hospital for a checkup and the doctor said that her progesterone level was too low, so she had to stay in bed to rest and take care of the fetus. But how could she dare to stay in bed? She left the house with nothing after divorcing Chuang, and only took away her salary card. Although there was a lot of money in it, she didn't dare to spend it carelessly. She was unfamiliar with City A and had no one to help her. She planned to find a confinement nanny and a babysitter to take care of her after giving birth. During this period of recuperation, she had to spend money everywhere, and she would also need a babysitter to help take care of the child in the future, which would also require a lot of expenses. She fled to City A because she was pregnant. She didn't dare to go for an interview at a serious company because all companies required a physical examination to get a job, and no one would hire a pregnant woman like her. She could only work in places like supermarkets that didn't require a physical examination, and she tried to earn every penny she could. She had no mother to teach her since she was young, and even her menstruation came thanks to the help of her junior high school teacher. Jiang Jiran had heard from her grandmother that women are not so delicate when they are pregnant, and they all work in the fields until they give birth. Jiang Jiran couldn't help but touch her belly. "Baby, you must be well, from now on, you and your mother will be the only ones to depend on each other." The thoughts of the night are vast and chaotic. The next day at noon, Chuang lost his temper in Lanyang. Everyone around Chuang can feel his irritability, just like a woman having her period. Just like now, a group of employees stood in front of Chuang and dared not breathe. Jiu Chuang was different from others when he was angry. When he was angry, he would not say a word, but would look at you sinisterly with a cigarette in his mouth, and would not move his eyes even if your scalp was numb. As soon as Lu Qianqian entered the room, he saw such a horrifying scene. A group of people stood in front of Jiu Chuang with trembling legs and dared not speak. Forget it, he decided to be a kind person and save them. Jiu. Roll. Before he even opened his mouth, Lu Qianqian was frightened by Jiu Chuang's anger. Was he telling him to get out or them? No one dared to move. Jiu Chuang glanced over and the manager of the housekeeping department of Lianyan took the lead and walked out. When she was almost at the door, she was almost jogging all the way, fearing that Jiu Chuang would change his mind and keep them. Everyone in the room left. Jiu Chuang put out the cigarette between his fingers and rubbed his eyebrows tiredly. Recently, he would dream about Jiang Jiran's miscarriage every night, and he would always wake up in a cold sweat. But after so many days, there was still no news from Lao He. What's wrong with you? You ate explosives instead of breakfast. Lu Qianqian walked to Jiu Chuang, pulled out a chair and sat down, then he took the cigarette that Jiu Chuang handed over and took a puff slowly. Will you eat if I treat you? Lu Qianqian. Brother is back. He told me to tell you that we should go to Fudu for dinner tomorrow night. It was rare for me to get up early and come to his place, but I didn't expect that this guy would explode in the morning. He would explode at any random words. Lu Qianqian shook his head in annoyance. He really shouldn't have come here so early in the morning to cause bad luck. Fudu. Jiu Chuang narrowed his eyes slightly, took out a cigarette from the cigarette box, lit it and took a puff. In his previous life, Jiu Chuang did not go to Lianyan the day after his divorce, but went to Fudu. Someone introduced him to a liquor merchant the day before his divorce, and he was supposed to go to Fudu to discuss cooperation with the liquor merchant the day after his divorce. It was there that he met someone who looked 50% like him, and he tremblingly called him brother. In this life, Jiu Chuang woke up and sent a message to Tang Rui to ask him to go and discuss the cooperation, while he went to Lianyan. In the previous life, he really underestimated the cheap brother who came to him. Come back to your senses. Lu Qianqian waved his hand in front of Jiu Chuang's eyes. What are you thinking about? You are so engrossed in it. It's okay. You're wandering around all day. Don't you have anything to do? Why are you staying here with me? I have nowhere to go, otherwise who would want to stay with someone like you who doesn't understand romance? Lu Qianqian complained with disgust on his face. I really don't know why my sister-in-law would fall for someone like you. When he heard the word sister-in-law, Jiu Chuang felt a dull pain in his heart again. He picked up the phone and was about to call Lao He, but Lao He's caller ID appeared on the phone screen. Speak. Jiu Chuang didn't waste any words with Lao He. Lao He must have called at this time because he had news about Jiang Jiran. Master Jiu, I found the person you asked me to find. I'll send you the information on where she lives and works. She took a bus when she left City C, and changed buses several times before she settled down. Her workplace is a small supermarket. It took our people some effort to find her. Lao He was talking a lot over there, and Jiu Chuang had no patience to listen. As soon as Lao He finished his last word, Jiu Chuang hung up the phone, took out the car keys from the drawer and prepared to go out. Hey, where are you going? Lu Qianqian grabbed Jiu Chuang's hand, but Jiu Chuang waved him away. Something happened. I may not be able to make it back to dinner with my brother tonight. Please tell him for me. Jiu Chuang didn't have time to explain so much to Lu Qianqian, so he opened the office door and left. In the years between their divorce and his death, he actually missed Jiang Jiran very much. His private life was very chaotic before he married Jiang Jiran. From the time he married and divorced Jiang Jiran to his death, he never had any other woman except Jiang Jiran. Does he love Jiang Jiran or not? In fact, he himself doesn't know. He has never felt the warmth of a family. Their whole family is full of quarrels and silence after the Cold War. Grandpa and Grandma don't like his mother because his father was a live-in son-in-law. Grandpa and Grandma hate his mother for forcing his father to be a live-in son-in-law, which ruined the Gao family's reputation. But was it his mother who forced him? It was obviously his father who wanted to take a shortcut to marry the daughter of the Gao family. Later, the Gao family fell into decline, and the faces of these people were all exposed. The older he got, the less he liked going home for dinner. He would spend the New Year and other holidays with his friends outside. He really didn't like people waiting for him to eat, wait for him to come home, and wait for him to go to bed. Even if he married Jiang Jiran, he couldn't accompany her for a few meals, let alone go home on time. Jiang Jiran once asked why he should get married if he couldn't shoulder the responsibilities of a husband. Why did he want to get married? Perhaps it was because the person he was going to marry was Jiang Jiran. After 4 hours of driving, he arrived at Jiang Jiran's residential area. It took him a long time to find this damn place using the navigation system. Looking at the dilapidated old residential area in front of him, Chuang felt very uncomfortable. On their way here, he was also thinking, does Jiang Jiran love him? After his death, she went to collect his body and find the truth for him. Was it because of love, or was it because she wanted to repay him for helping her bury her grandparents? Chapter 5, My Wife is Being Thought of by Others. After finally making it to lunchtime, Jiang Jiran pounded his stiff legs and walked towards the rest area. It was called a rest area, but it was actually a small warehouse. Everyone took turns eating in the warehouse at noon, and each person only had 15 minutes to eat. This was the only time they could rest during the workday. Jiang Jiran hadn't entered the warehouse yet. Through the open door, she saw security guard Li Quan helping her take out the food and heating it up in the microwave. Jiang Jiran walked over and smiled at him gratefully. Xiao Li, help Xiao Jiang heat up the food again. Yeah, you're not here to warm it up for us. It turns out that beautiful women are the most popular. Old ladies like us can only do it ourselves. Several middle-aged women who came to eat around made ambiguous jokes. Li Quan was tongue-tied and his face turned red as he took the meal out of the microwave. He couldn't utter a word for a long time. Jiang Jiran smiled and took over the conversation. You are not old ladies at all, you are obviously beautiful women. Those customers all know that among the supermarkets in this town, the sisters in our supermarket are the most beautiful. You, kid, are good at talking. The older sisters and aunties were laughing so hard that they stopped talking for the time being. Jiang Jiran had a poor appetite recently due to her pregnancy. Although she had more than just frequent morning sickness, she still couldn't eat much. She just ate a few bites, washed the dishes, and went back to work. The remaining women and girls in the warehouse surrounded Li Quan and said earnestly, Xiao Li, you are not a child anymore. It's not easy for such a young beauty to come to the supermarket. You must seize the opportunity. That's right. I heard that many people in the opposite class are asking their relatives about Xiao Jiang. I regret letting my son get married so early. Otherwise, I would have introduced him to Xiao Jiang. I have never seen such a beautiful girl. Xiao Jiang is diligent and seems to know how to get by. You better hurry up. Yesterday I saw a male customer who often comes to the supermarket asking the manager about Xiao Jiang. The aunties and sisters kept talking to each other, and Li Quan didn't know how to respond. He was not good at talking to begin with, and now he was even more nervous. He also wanted to pursue Jiang Jiran, but he didn't know how to start. He had a hunch that Jiang Jiran was different from them and would not be interested in him. As for the relatives and customers of those aunties and sisters, Jiang Jiran would not accept them. Jiang Jiran had just returned to the cashier counter when Sister Wang from the fresh produce section came over mysteriously. Xiao Jiang, do you still remember my nephew who brought me something last time? Jiang Jiran recalled for a moment and spoke uncertainly, is it the handsome guy wearing gold-rimmed glasses? It seemed that a few days ago, a man wearing glasses came to see Sister Wang. He was short and dark, and looked at her with a particularly obscene look. At that time, another cashier, Sister Zhu, complained to her that Sister Wang's nephew was in his 30s and had not found a wife yet. Before, there were many enthusiastic people in the supermarket who wanted to introduce him to a girl, but the girl's own conditions were not that good, but her standards were too high and she had an inexplicable sense of superiority that she was the best in the world. Yes, that's him. Sister Wang suddenly became excited. While there were few customers and the managers had all gone to eat, she stood in front of the cashier and said loudly, my nephew is so outstanding. He works in a property management company now and has a very good salary. I wanted to introduce him to you because you look pretty. Other people in our supermarket wanted to ask about my nephew for their daughters and relatives, but I ignored them. Last time my nephew came to the supermarket to deliver something to me, he saw you and said he would treat you to dinner after you get off work. Jiang Jiran looked at Sister Wang's saliva that was about to spray on her face, and stepped back calmly. She really felt that she deserved a beating. Why didn't she just say, the man with gold-rimmed glasses? Why did she have to add the word, handsome guy? Seeing how excited Sister Wang was, she thought that she was also interested in her nephew. Sister Wang. Jiang Jiran looked at Sister Wang with a smile on his face. Don't worry, old man. I'm not from City A. My family doesn't want me to marry far away. Little. Sister Wang wanted to say something, but when she saw the manager coming over, she ran away quickly. Chuang, who was speeding on the highway happily to find his wife, had no idea that his wife was being remembered by someone else. Jiang Jiran worked the early shift today and got off work at 4 in the afternoon. She packed up and prepared to go home. Sister Wang held her hand and stopped her from leaving. Xiao Jiang, we agreed to go out for dinner after work. Why are you leaving so fast? Sister Wang, I didn't promise you to go out for dinner. I have something else to do and I have to go home first. Jiang Jiran gently pushed Sister Wang's hand away and was about to raise his foot when he was pulled back by Sister Wang again. Sister Zhu couldn't bear to see this, so she stepped forward and said, Sister Wang, blind dates are about mutual consent. Xiao Jiang isn't from here, so it's normal for her not to want to find a local man. Don't force her to be with your nephew. Go away. Sister Wang waved Sister Zhu away like she was chasing away a fly. Xiao Zhu, don't think I don't know that you're just upset. Before, you wanted to introduce your sister to my nephew, but my nephew didn't like her. Now my nephew likes Xiao Jiang, and you're jealous. Hey, what you said is a good thing. Your nephew doesn't like my sister. A man like your nephew who has no skills and is not good looking deserves to be in his 30s and still can't find a girlfriend. Who are you looking down on? My nephew has 5 insurances purchased from a property management company. Your sister, a factory worker, wants to marry my nephew. Dream on. Stop. Seeing the fight getting more and more intense, Jiang Jiran hurriedly stopped them. Where are we going to eat? I'll go. But you have to come with me, Sister Wang. I'll think of it as you inviting me to eat. No matter what, this matter was caused by himself. Jiang Jiran had no choice but to compromise. After the meal, he secretly paid the bill and explained to Sister Wang that he and her nephew were not suitable. Seeing that Jiang Jiran was determined to help out, Sister Zhu decided not to argue with the confused old woman and left with her things without looking back. Chapter 6 My wife is not someone you can fantasize about. As soon as they walked out of the supermarket, they saw a man walking towards them with roses in his hand. There is only one rose, and with the man's smile, it looks so vulgar no matter how you look at it. Sister Wang, who was standing beside him, smiled brighter than a rose when she saw the man. Young people know how to be romantic. My nephew prepared flowers for you when we had our first meal together. There aren't many men who are so thoughtful. Hee hee. Jiang Jiran didn't know what to say, so she could only laugh dryly. She thought of her birthday every year. Although Chuang didn't remember it, every time she posted a message on WeChat Moments wishing herself a happy birthday, Chuang would always ask the florist to send her 999 roses and a double-layer cake. So much so that she wanted to vomit when she saw roses now. Chuang and Wang Jie's nephew are both very unsophisticated men. The difference between the two is that one is unsophisticated with money, and the other is unsophisticated without money. Anyway, their heartless ways of being unsophisticated are so unsophisticated that Jiang Jiran is disgusted. Hello, Xiao Jiang, right? My name is Wang Pingyu. Although Sister Wang's nephew doesn't look like a good person, he speaks in a very polite manner. Hello, Jiang Jiran. Jiang Jiran held the bag in both hands and ignored the roses handed to him by Wang Pingyu. It was time for the supermarket's early shift employees to get off work. Many people who came out saw this scene. Sister Wang shouted in an exaggerated voice, Wow, Pingyu, your flower is so beautiful. Where can you find a man as outstanding and romantic as you? Xiao Jiang, why don't you take this flower? Seeing those employees dawdling and not in a hurry to go home, and glancing over here intentionally or unintentionally, she felt a headache. No need, Sister Wang. I just want to treat you to a meal today and thank you for taking care of me for so long. Jiang Jiran pulled Sister Wang and wanted to leave. If they didn't leave, gossip in the supermarket would be everywhere tomorrow. Jiang Jiran wanted to leave, but Sister Wang wouldn't let her. No matter what, she had to let her accept the flowers at the supermarket entrance. With so many eyes watching, if she accepted the flowers, Sister Wang could openly tell everyone that Jiang Jiran was in love with her nephew, and then Jiang Jiran would have no way to explain. Xiao Jiang, please accept the flowers first. Pingyu will feel sleepy if he holds his hands up like this. Li Quan, who was standing next to him, saw this and clenched his fists. He wanted to rush over and say something, but what could he say? He was not related to Jiang Jiran, and he didn't even know whether she was willing to accept Wang Pingyu. When the situation was at a stalemate, Jiang Jiran reached out a hand to take the flowers and threw them into the trash can beside him. The three of them looked at the person who suddenly appeared behind Jiang Jiran in shock. Wang Pingyu and Sister Wang were horrified, while Jiang Jiran was frightened. How come this man, whom she would recognize even if he were burned to ashes, came here? Chuang waited for a long time downstairs of Jiang Jiran's building. He almost finished 2 packs of cigarettes and played so many rounds of mahjong that he couldn't count how many times he had played. After waiting for a long time, he still didn't see her come back. He remembered that Lao He had sent him the address where Jiang Jiran worked, so he drove over directly. In fact, he arrived there for quite a while. He saw a shabby man in a wrinkled suit, holding a lonely rose and standing at the door of the supermarket, looking forward to it. Chuang is a carefree person who likes to watch other people's fun. He married Jiang Jiran right after he got rich. He had never done this kind of thing, where he had no money and had to be cautious in dating and chasing girls, even when he was doing poorly in the underworld. He is not the kind of person who would chase girls. The principle that Chuang believes in is that as long as one has money and ability, is there any need to chase women? This principle will be destroyed and vulnerable in the long course of time to come, and someone will be slapped in the face. Now he didn't expect that he would see his own wife while watching the show. He was angry at that time. Damn it, no one in City C dared to take advantage of Mr. Gu's woman. Did he think that Mr. Gu's prestige was gone after he came to City A? He immediately took out his phone and took a photo of the shabby man and called him. I'm in your territory now. I'll send you the photo. Please help me check this person's company and make him lose his job. The person on the other end of the phone was about to say something when Chuang said, now is the time to show your strength. After saying that, he hung up the phone. If you dare to hit on his wife, then make sure he doesn't even have money to buy a rose. Chuang watched for such a long time without rushing out, because he also wanted to know, if Jiang Jiran didn't like him, would he like this kind of worldly man? Chuang knew that he could not give Jiang Jiran the married life she longed for. He was married to Jiang Jiran for 3 years. Until his death, when his soul wandered around Jiang Jiran, he understood that what Jiang Jiran wanted was companionship, not him living a life of debauchery outside in the name of making money and leaving her alone at home. When Jiang Jiran was particularly upset, he yelled at him and told him to find a woman from the same circle as him and marry her so that they could each have their own fun and not interfere with each other. He knew from the beginning that he and Jiang Jiran were not the same kind of people, but why was it Jiang Jiran? Chuang had never seen such an ignorant person. Jiang Jiran didn't even take the flower, but his hand was still raised. What did these two want? To force his wife to accept that shabby flower. Chuang put out the cigarette and threw it into the trash can. Unexpectedly, he went up to take the flower and gave it a home in the trash can. You, who are you? No matter how Chuang has transformed himself in recent years, he cannot hide his ruffian aura. Wang Pingyu even stuttered a little when he saw Chuang, who was obviously not a good person. It's your father. Chuang smiled evilly. There was no need to be polite when dealing with someone who was spying on his wife. Before Wang Pingyu could react, Sister Wang got angry first. Where did you come from, you little jerk? Pay back double the money you spent and get out of here. Li Quan watched from afar. Because a man suddenly joined in, there seemed to be a quarrel here. He was afraid that Jiang Jiran would suffer a loss, so he ran over immediately. Sister Wang saw Li Quan, then looked at Chuang, and immediately understood. I was wondering why you didn't accept my Pingyu, who is so outstanding. It turns out that he has 2 mistresses. Sister Wang, what are you talking about? Li Quan's fighting ability was too weak, and he could only utter this sentence after holding it in for a long time. But Chuang was different. He had dealt with all kinds of people, so dealing with this kind of common woman was no piece of cake. Which eye of yours can see that this guy is excellent? He only gives a flower to a girl when chasing her. Is that excellent in a shabby way? Chuang crossed his arms and glanced at Wang Pingyu. He is so short. No wonder he still can't find a wife at the age of 40 or 50. Jiang Jiran simply didn't want to listen any further. Chuang, this guy, has been a boss for so many years but still behaves like a gangster. Should she still go to work tomorrow? She was just about to pull Chuang away, but he got addicted to it and continued, no wonder there's a saying that a toad wants to eat swan meat. It turns out that it's all prepared for people like you. You. Before Chuang could finish his words, Jiang Jiran pinched him hard. Before she could say anything, Chuang put his arm around her shoulders and said proudly, my wife is not something you, a short, ugly, and poor man like you, can dream of. After saying that, he took Jiang Jiran's hand and walked towards his Mercedes-Benz. Chuang is a rustic and uncultured person at heart. When buying a car, he likes to buy the famous cars that everyone knows. Few people recognize the logos of Rolls-Royce and Lamborghini. Mercedes-Benz and BMW are better. You can tell he is a rich man by looking at the car. Sure enough, Wang Pingyu and Li Quan looked at his Mercedes in silence. Sister Wang was still yelling from behind, are you married? Hey, you, why didn't you tell me that you were married? And you made me bother to introduce my nephew to you. You don't want to keep him hanging because he's so good. Chapter 7 I want to go back with you. Chuang held the steering wheel with his right hand and held a cigarette in his left hand, taking a puff from time to time. Even though Jiang Jiran opened all the windows next to him, he still couldn't help but feel like retching. Mr. Jiu, could you please put out the cigarette first? Jiang Jiran really had no choice. Chuang was a very selfish person. If she didn't say anything, Chuang would not consider her feelings at all. It's only been a few days since the divorce, how come even Mr. Jiu is called in? Chuang frowned, his face darkened, and he did not respond to Jiang Jiran. He took a last puff of his cigarette and threw the butt out of the car window. Jiang Jiran had been secretly in love with Chuang for so many years. She knew every expression of his. She knew that Chuang was really angry now. She really didn't know what he was angry about. He agreed to the divorce without thinking about it. Why did he come to her again now? The car sped along, and Jiang Jiran did not even ask Chuang if he knew where to go. Chuang has always been very resourceful. Since he could even find where she worked, he could find where she lived, too. She never thought that Chuang would come to her after the divorce. She was actually very happy when she knew she was pregnant. She felt that this child might be a catalyst in their cold marriage. Even though Chuang once told her that he didn't like children, she still believed that even if he didn't like it, Chuang would give this family a little warmth because of the arrival of the child. However, before she could tell Chuang that she was pregnant, she saw that incident, which instantly turned her humble secret love for so many years into a joke. Even though she was pregnant, she still filed for divorce without hesitation. Pregnant? Jiang Jiran's heart suddenly shuddered. Could it be? Jiang Jiran's hand unconsciously grabbed her stomach. What if Chuang knew that she was pregnant and came to snatch the child from her? What should she do? When Jiang Jiran was at a loss, Chuang stopped the car, got out and closed the car door. The sound of the door slamming loudly woke Jiang Jiran up. When she looked up, she found that they had arrived downstairs of the community where she rented a house. In order to save money, she lives a little far from the supermarket, and it is an old residential area with no elevator, so she can only go up and down the stairs. There are some dirty water stains in the corridor, the walls are also dirty, and the corridor has a faint musty smell all year round. Such a living environment, coupled with the job of a supermarket cashier, made Jiang Jiran unable to raise his head in front of Chuang. Chuang, that was a person standing at the top of the pyramid in City C. He was divorced and had no problem finding any woman. Why would he look for a divorced wife whom he didn't like? Thinking about it, the thing that could make him put aside his status and come back to find her should be the child in her belly. Chuang was standing outside the car smoking. He had always been addicted to smoking. Before the divorce, Jiang Jiran would find ways to get him to smoke less. After the divorce, no one cared about him, and his smoking addiction became worse in those years. He brought this addiction back with him when he was reborn. Looking at Jiang Jiran's absent-minded look, Chuang didn't know what to say. His wife had a very different upbringing, education, and world outlook from him. He often didn't know what she was thinking. Jiang Jiran's personality was gentle and quiet, and he kept everything to himself. Between him and Jiang Jiran, one was unwilling to talk, and the other was too lazy to ask, and as time went by, they both felt that they couldn't live together anymore. If he had to do it all over again, Chuang would have to break the way they get along. Ginger. Jiu. The two people spoke at the same time. Chuang raised his chin and signaled Jiang Jiran to speak first. Jiang Jiran walked out of the car, stood in front of Chuang, and looked at him with courage. We are already divorced. Although I don't know why you came to me, I still hope you won't disturb my life. Jiang Jiran lowered her head quickly after she finished speaking, and drew circles on the ground with one foot. She was afraid of Chuang, who had a particularly bad temper. When he got angry, people felt particularly depressed, as if a storm was about to come. I came to you to discuss remarriage. Buzz. Chuang's words made Jiang Jiran's head buzz. Was he hallucinating? After all, when they divorced, Chuang had made a promise that he would not go back to his ex. If Jiang Jiran insisted on getting a divorce, he would never remarry her. It's only been a short time and you've already been slapped in the face. Chuang, have you drunk too much? Jiang Jiran looked at Chuang in confusion. The man in front of him had cool eyes and spoke clearly, and he didn't look like he was drunk. Chuang was somewhat embarrassed by Jiang Jiran's questioning, but who was Chuang? He was a gangster who rolled around at the gambling table, and he was best at keeping a straight face. Before he could say anything, Jiang Jiran asked, "Do you remember what you said when you divorced?" This was the first time that Jiang Jiran spoke to Chuang so bluntly. If it were in the past, Jiang Jiran would definitely not have been able to say it. It's not that Jiang Jiran is shy, but in relationships, there are many things that if you say them out loud, men will think that women are making a fuss and being petty. If you don't say them out loud, women will feel wronged. Most of the time, Jiang Jiran was silently aggrieved and sulking, but Chuang didn't pay much attention to Jiang Jiran's psychology, which made Jiang Jiran even more aggrieved. In Chuang's opinion, his wife was depressed all day long and often looked at him with sad eyes, which made Chuang even more depressed. I don't remember. Chuang really didn't remember. For Jiang Jiran, they had only been divorced for more than 10 days, but for Chuang, what happened before the divorce was already a thing of the previous life. Jiang Jiran was a little hurt. After 3 years of marriage, she had been just an insignificant wife to Chuang. She didn't expect that even the divorce could be so careless. When he signed the divorce agreement without hesitation, Jiang Jiran felt that Chuang really agreed to the divorce and was determined to get it over with. When she finally made up her mind to leave him and wanted to forget him, he said he wanted to remarry. Was Chuang playing a trick on her? Or was it just because of the baby in her belly? Seeing Jiang Jiran biting his lips and not saying anything, Chuang understood a little. He must have said something harsh during the divorce, which made Jiang Jiran feel uncomfortable. Wife, no matter what I said during the divorce, you thought I was crazy. I know I was wrong. Can you please come back with me first? It's not safe for you to live in a place like this by yourself, and you get off work the night shift and get off work so late. I'm worried. Chuang swore that this was the first time in his 2 lives that he had spoken to someone in such a humble manner. Seeing Jiang Jiran living in such a place while pregnant, and a graduate from a key university working as a cashier in a supermarket, his heart ached. Chuang, although I don't know why you came to see me, I won't go back with you. I have used 3 years of widowhood-style marriage to prove that we are not suitable for each other, which is enough. Let's let each other go. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Jiran quickly ran to the stairs. Chuang came to see her, maybe because he knew she was pregnant, maybe because he was hot-headed, or maybe because of other reasons. But among these possibilities, none of them was because he couldn't bear to leave her. Chapter 8. We all thought you liked her. Chuang leaned against the car, his tall figure, his hands in his trouser pockets, and stared at the corridor where Jiang Jiran disappeared with complicated eyes. He was very upset and wanted to smoke a cigarette to calm his restless mood. But there were no cigarettes in the cigarette box. Facing Jiang Jiran's distant look towards him, he panicked. Before coming to find Jiang Jiran, Chuang was still confident that he could bring Jiang Jiran back. Now seeing Jiang Jiran like this, he was particularly confused. If that dream was true, Jiang Jiran should be pregnant now. He came to her, begged her to go back, and also gave her a way out. Why did she still refuse? Both of them have a weak bond with their parents. Do they want their child to grow up in the same incomplete and unhappy family as them? Ding-ling, ding-ling. Jiang Chuang didn't even bother to check the caller ID on his phone. He said to the other party in a bad tone, "I'm not in the mood to answer the phone now. Don't bother me. Brother Chuang." Li Mingyan's cautious voice came from the other end of the phone, "What's wrong with you?" Jiang Chuang calmed down before speaking, "What do you want from me?" "It's okay. I just heard from them that you were divorced, so I wanted to invite you to dinner and comfort you." Li Mingyan's gentle voice was like a soothing piece of music, which made Jiang Chuang's brows relax a lot. "Don't listen to their nonsense. Your sister-in-law and I are going to remarry." Li Mingyan was stunned for a moment, and before she could react, she heard Jiang Chuang continue, "I'll treat you to a meal with your sister-in-law when I get back. I have something else to do, so I'll hang up first." Before Li Mingyan asked him where he was, she heard a beep sound from the phone. Li Mingyan's eyes flashed with sadness, and the hand holding the phone tightened involuntarily. When did his relationship with Jiang Jiran become so close? When Jiang Chuang was 15 or 16 years old and hanging out in gangs, he was particularly fond of flirting with girls. Over the years, the girls and women around him have passed by like water, and he doesn't even remember the names of many of his exes. Only Li Mingyan was an accident. Li Mingyan was not his girlfriend, but his adopted sister. Once, Jiang Chuang was attacked and beaten half to death by a dozen people. It was Li Mingyan who passed by and found his cell phone to notify someone to send him to the hospital. For Jiang Chuang, Li Mingyan is his benefactor. A figure flashed by the window on the 4th floor, but Jiang Chuang, who was looking down at his phone, did not notice it. Jiang Jiran hid behind the curtains, watching Jiang Chuang answer the phone with a gentle expression. His heart felt like it was being rubbed by someone, and it ached. That call should have been from Li Mingyan. Only in front of Li Mingyan would Jiang Chuang be gentle and patient. She really had nothing to do and was still peeking here. What did Jiang Chuang do to her? Jiang Chuang, who was downstairs, looked at the lights on the 4th floor and saw that all the lights were off. Then he bent down and sat back in the car. After thinking for a while, he sent a WeChat message to Lu Chen. Not long after the WeChat message was sent, Lu Chen's video popped up. What Jiang Chuang hates most is video calls, especially with Lu Chen. What is so good about two grown men? As soon as the video was connected, Jiang Chuang immediately switched to voice mode, and Lu Chen started to make noise again. "Are you ashamed to be seen? What's wrong with letting me see it? Stop talking nonsense. Just say it." Jiang Chuang just couldn't stand Lu Chen's noisy temper, which delayed things. Jiang Chuang knew that Lu Chen would not send a video call at night unless he had something important to do. Instead of video chatting with him, Master Lu might as well go to Lianyan and call a few more girls. Lu Chen cleared his throat. "There is something I just learned. A person who looks very similar to you appeared in City C. Big Brother is already helping you check it out." Jiang Chuang was playing with a lighter in his left hand, holding a mobile phone in his right hand, and looking ahead with deep eyes. In his previous life, he was the first person he met. He had never been close to his father since he was a child. In order to get his father's attention, he thought that since things had come to this point, there was no point in pursuing them, so he should just accept it. He ignored his mother's sadness and took the person to his side and taught him personally. Who would have thought that the child from the mountains would actually be a wild wolf and end up biting him? "What are you thinking about?" Jiang Chuang was silent for a long time, and Lu Chen couldn't hold it in any longer. "I heard that you had a problem with a junior employee of a property management company today. Are you going to fire him?" Jiang Chuang's anger was aroused again by Lu Chen. Now anyone could dare to covet his wife. "Let me ask you, how do you comfort an angry woman?" "What?" Lu Chen thought he had misheard, so he took the phone away from his ear and took a closer look. It was Jiang Chuang's WeChat message, and he had not dialed the wrong number. But why would Jiang Chuang ask such a shocking question? Jiang Chuang was completely impatient. He failed to coax his wife home late at night, and he didn't dare to leave. It was uncomfortable enough for such a big person to curl up in the car. When he asked Lu Chen questions, this guy was still hesitant, which was really annoying. Who are you trying to coax? Li Mengyun. Lu Qianqian asked uncertainly. Jiu Chuang frowned and asked incredulously, why is it to coax Li Mengyun? Can't I coax my wife? Lu Qianqian laughed dryly on the other end of the phone. Hey, don't blame me for thinking this way. Don't you often buy bags and skin care products for Li Mengyun? You treat Li Mengyun better than your sister-in-law. We all thought you liked Li Mengyun. What nonsense! Jiu Chuang explained angrily, she asked me to buy those things, and it wasn't me who bought them, it was Tang Rui who did it, I don't have the time for that. Lu Qianqian had heard something. Not only him, but everyone around Jiu Chuang thought that Jiu Chuang was cold to Jiang Jiran because of Li Mengyun. Every time he went out for a party, Jiu Chuang never brought Jiang Jiran with him, but Li Mengyun would always be by his side. At that time, Xiaowu also said that brother and sister would become a pair sooner or later. Jiu Chuang asked himself that his relationship with Li Mengyun was innocent, and he could sleep with anyone else but not his own sister. Isn't that nonsense? How disgusting. Lu Qianqian didn't say much about the brotherly relationship, but just reminded, you are so good to Li Mengyun, I just don't know if my sister-in-law minds. Jiu Chuang didn't take this seriously. Did he mind? What was there to mind? He only regarded Li Mengyun as his sister. It was unreasonable for Jiang Jiran to mind. He chatted with Lu Qianqian for a long time before hanging up the phone. Lu Qianqian asked him if he knew where the person who looked very similar to him came from, and Jiu Chuang just said he didn't know. He really didn't know in this life, and the time he was reborn was rather hasty. These days, he had been concentrating on looking for Jiang Jiran and had not had time to make any plans. In his previous life, he had never seriously verified the information of that person. He believed whatever that person and his hypocritical father said. He never expected that he had spent half his life hunting geese, but in the end, he was still pecked in the eye by a goose. Jiu Chuang fell asleep while thinking about this and that. Chapter 9. She is kept by someone. The early mornings in June are always a little cool, and the air is filled with a faint fragrance. Jiang Jiran walked downstairs happily in the morning sunshine, feeling pretty good. She was working the night shift today and was going to the hospital for a prenatal checkup. As soon as he walked out of the corridor, Jiang Jiran saw that the black Mercedes was still parked majestically in the same position as last night. Jiang Jiran quietly walked over and took a look, but the car windows were pitch black and he couldn't see inside at all. Jiang Jiran didn't think much about it, thinking that Jiu Chuang asked his friends to pick him up to hang out last night. Jiang Jiran knew that even if this was not Jiu Chuang's territory, he would still have friends here, so there was no need to worry about him. A man like Jiu Chuang would not wait for her at the bottom of the building for a whole night. If Jiu Chuang had this patience with her, they would not have ended up getting divorced. Jiang Jiran, who turned around and left, didn't know that the man she thought was having a good time was curled up in the car and sleeping soundly. Arriving at the hospital, Jiang Jiran registered skillfully and asked the doctor to write a prescription. The baby in her belly is only 2 months old, but she is not showing any signs of pregnancy at all. After nearly an hour of hard work, the results finally came out. The doctor said the same thing as before. If Jiang Jiran didn't rest in bed and didn't get the injection to preserve the pregnancy, there was a high possibility that she would not be able to keep the baby. After what happened between Sister Wang and Jiu Chuang yesterday, Jiang Jiran is also considering resigning. Her savings should be able to last for a while, so she will look for a job after giving birth. The hospital is not far from the supermarket. City A is a smaller city than City C. Jiang Jiran finished his breakfast leisurely and then walked slowly to the supermarket. She didn't plan to go to work today and went to tell the supermarket manager about her resignation. As soon as I entered the supermarket, before I saw the manager, I was pulled aside by Sister Zhu. Xiaojiang, why are you here so early? The whole supermarket has heard about what happened yesterday. Sister Wen said some very unpleasant things. What did she say? Jiang Jiran didn't care about that and looked around for the manager. How do you come here? A loud voice was heard from afar, and soon Sister Wang's fat figure rolled in front of them. You are so young, why don't you do anything else? You actually became someone else's mistress. No wonder I was wondering why you wear different clothes every day when you work in the same supermarket. Are the salaries from the supermarket enough for you to buy clothes? It turns out that they are all given by your sponsor. Sister Wang's words attracted a lot of customers to watch. They were all regular customers from nearby residents who frequently came to the supermarket to shop. Most of them were familiar with this pretty cashier and stood by and pointed. No way, it looks like the little girl isn't that kind of person. How can someone who is being kept by someone come to work in a supermarket? Who says you can't come to work in the supermarket if you're being kept? Just to kill time. There are so many things you can do these days, why do you want to be a mistress? How immoral. The discussions around him were getting louder and louder. Looking at Sister Wang's smug face, Jiang Jiran really wanted to slap her. Jiang Jiran took a few deep breaths before calming himself down. I can call the police if you talk nonsense. Which I have yours so that I was being kept. Not accepting your wretched nephew means I was being kept. Last night, you and your nephew insisted on inviting me to dinner, and you even insisted on giving me that wilted rose. If I didn't want it, I was being kept. After being married to Chuang for 3 years, Jiang Jiran has learned a lot and his fighting ability should not be underestimated. Puchi, Sister Zhu next to her couldn't help but burst out laughing. The word vulgar really suits Wang Pingyu. Hey, what do you say to the man who helped you? You agreed to have dinner with my nephew, but you still held hands and hugged other men. You are a fickle man. The onlookers couldn't stand what Sister Wang said. A younger girl retorted, agreeing to have dinner doesn't mean anything, right? Can't you have dinner with a guy these days? Does having dinner together mean your boyfriend or girlfriend? While the argument was going on, a pleasant female voice came over, Jiran, why are you here? Jiang Jiran then saw Li Mengyun in the crowd, and her heart skipped a beat. She didn't expect that Chuang came to her to remarry her, and actually brought Li Mengyun with him. Jiang Jiran felt very uncomfortable when Li Mengyun saw him in such an embarrassing state. You, don't think too much. Just stay with Brother Chuang. There's no need to work in a place like this. You know how capable Brother Chuang is. It won't be a problem for him to support you. Li Mengyun's words made people around him think more. Hey, you still say you're not a mistress? Go ahead, call the police and see whether they arrest me or you, the shameless mistress. Hearing what Li Mengyun said, Sister Wang became even more arrogant, and Jiang Jiran almost vomited blood in anger. Before she could say anything, Li Mengyun spoke first. How can you talk like that, elder sister? Who is the mistress? How can you accuse others of something? Xiaojiang, Sister Wang, come with me. The manager pushed his way through the crowd and ended the farce. Sister Wang was immediately discouraged when she saw the manager. She didn't want to lose this job. It was very difficult to find a job when she was old. The supermarket could help her by pension insurance. If she lost this job, she would have to work as a street sweeper and they would help her buy insurance. She didn't want to suffer in the wind and sun. Can anyone tell me what's going on? As soon as she entered the warehouse, the manager got furious that no one had informed her about such a big incident. Jiang Jiran bowed to the manager. She felt very sorry for what happened today. Manager, I'm sorry. My personal matter has caused trouble to the supermarket. Due to personal reasons, I am ready to resign. Thank you for taking care of me during this period of time. The manager was a little confused when he heard Jiang Jiran's words. Why would you resign for no reason? If you don't mind what happened today, no one will talk about it after a while. I also believe in you. Jiang Jiran was particularly moved when she heard the manager's words. She came to City A where she was unfamiliar with the place and didn't dare to contact her old friends. Thanks to the supermarket manager for taking care of her and finding her a place to rent a house, she could trust her without hesitation even when something like this happened. Thank you so much. I resigned not because of what happened today, but because of my own personal reasons. Sister Wang didn't even dare to breathe, for fear that the manager would come to settle the score with her. Jiang Jiran discussed his resignation with his manager, glanced at Sister Wang indifferently, and left with his bag. She felt that it was pointless to argue with Sister Wang. There was really no need to explain what kind of person she was in their eyes. It was Li Mengyun who appeared inexplicably and said something inexplicable. What did it mean? Chapter 10. Are you pregnant? Chuang hasn't had a good sleep for several days. Ever since he had the dream about Jiang Jiran's miscarriage, every time he closed his eyes he saw Jiang Jiran lying weakly on the bed. After finding Jiang Jiran, Chuang felt much more at ease and slept until almost noon. After getting out of the car, Chuang habitually touched his pocket, preparing to have his first cigarette after getting up. After searching for a long time, he remembered that he had finished smoking last night. He could only suppress his urge to smoke and ran to the corridor. He ran up to the fourth floor in one breath and knocked on the door. "Wife, open the door." "Wife." "Jiang Jiran." Chuang called for a long time but no one answered. He thought that Jiang Jiran should go to work. Just as he was about to go downstairs, his cell phone rang. "Master Jiu, your Li Mengyun and Lao He heard about your trip to City A to look for your sister-in-law, so they should have gone to look for you." Lu Qinshan's joking voice came over. "Sure, you're going to look for your wife to remarry and bring your lover with you, Chuang, just behave like a decent person." Before Chuang could say anything, Lu Qinshan had already hung up the phone. What the hell is going on? Chuang was completely confused. As I walked, I raised my foot and headed downstairs. Li Mengyun came to City A? What was she doing here? When Chuang arrived at the supermarket, Jiang Jiran had already left. He walked around the supermarket for a long time but didn't see Jiang Jiran, but he heard Sister Wang and another aunt gossiping about Jiang Jiran being a mistress. I walked over and patted Sister Wang on the back. "Your nephew has lost his job. If you keep talking nonsense, I have 100 ways to make sure your whole family can't stay in City A." At this moment, Chuang was full of energy and his eyes became more sinister and cruel. Sister Wang was so scared that she was shaking all over. Such a murderous and handsome young man standing there was too eye-catching, and people in the supermarket gradually gathered around him. Chuang was wearing a thin black shirt with a few buttons casually open at the collar. His hands were lazily and casually placed in his trouser pockets. His narrow eyes were slightly raised, and there was coldness deep in his eyes. The supermarket manager came running over, barely catching her breath. Chuang squinted at her with a pair of cold eyes. "Where's Jiang Jiran?" "She has already resigned." "Sir, let's go to the side to talk if you have anything to say. You are affecting the normal business of our supermarket here." "No need." Chuang pointed at Sister Wang. "Watch your mouth." Seeing that Chuang was about to leave, the onlookers made way for him. They were frightened by Chuang's ferocious look, and the supermarket manager was considering whether to call the police. Chuang was about to call Jiang Jiran when he walked out of the supermarket, but then he realized his phone was out of battery. He had no choice but to drive back to the community building to wait for Jiang Jiran. After waiting for a while, he saw Jiang Jiran coming back with a lot of bags. Chuang walked towards him quickly and scared Jiang Jiran. "Why are you still here? I'm waiting for you. I won't leave unless you come back with me." Chuang took the things Jiang Jiran was holding and wanted to hold her hand. In fact, Jiang Jiran was a little touched when he saw Chuang still here when he got home, but when he thought of Li Mengyun whom he saw in the supermarket, Jiang Jiran's heart turned cold again. "Go back. I won't go with you. We're divorced. Don't come to see me again," Jiang Jiran said as he tried to get his things. Chuang dodged sideways and walked upstairs holding Jiang Jiran's hand regardless. "Let's not talk about this for now. I'm hungry. Go upstairs and make me something to eat." Jiang Jiran tried hard to shake off Chuang's hand, but he couldn't. Does this guy even understand what divorce means? Can he go to his ex-wife's house so openly after divorce? Chuang didn't know that his wife was thinking about these useless things. There was nothing in this world that Chuang couldn't do. It just depended on whether he wanted to do it or not. When they arrived at the door of the rental house, Jiang Jiran stubbornly refused to open the door. Chuang didn't care and directly took Jiang Jiran's bag to search. Jiang Jiran was completely speechless. Chuang found the key and opened the door in a familiar manner. He looked at the place, which was only about 30 square meters, with disdain and said, "What a shabby place this is." Chuang bent down and searched in the shoe cabinet for a long time but couldn't find a pair of slippers that he could wear, so he simply walked in with his socks on and sat down on the sofa. Jiang Jiran walked over and sat on the chair opposite the sofa. He pursed his lower lips, thought for a moment and said, "Chuang, what do you mean now? I want to remarry you. Can't you see it's so obvious?" Chuang was playing a game on his phone with a nonchalant look on his face. "I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten anything since yesterday noon. Go get me something to eat first." Seeing Chuang's nonchalant look, Jiang Jiran got a headache and had to get up and go to the kitchen to cook for him. Jiang Jiran moved quickly and quickly prepared 2 bowls of delicious tomato and egg noodles. The long and thin white noodles are soaked in the soup dyed red by tomato juice. Golden egg flowers are scattered in the bowl, and the emerald green chopped green onions floating on top make people's appetites grow. Chuang took the noodles and started eating without saying anything. It seemed that he was really hungry. He seldom went home to eat with Jiang Jiran, and seldom ate food cooked by Jiang Jiran. To him, home was just a hotel, a place to sleep. He often stayed out so much that he didn't even want to go home. "Wife, the noodles you cooked are so delicious," Chuang said with a happy expression after finishing the last bite of noodles. Jiang Jiran didn't feel anything about what Chuang said. In the past, she always hoped that Chuang would come home to have dinner with her. Not knowing Chuang's taste, she cooked different dishes every day and put a lot of thought into it. However, in the past 3 years, Chuang only came home for dinner a few times. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2 times when Chuang was able to go home and eat at the same table with her, but he would just take a few quick bites before going out again. She also fantasized that Chuang would praise her when he ate the food she cooked. Isn't it said that to capture a man's heart you have to capture his stomach first? But Chuang didn't even want to give her the chance. Jiang Jiran lowered his head and smiled self-deprecatingly. It didn't matter anymore. His heart had been hurt thousands of times, so how could he be shaken by Chuang's belated compliment? After Jiang Jiran finished eating the noodles, Chuang took the bowl into the kitchen to wash it. After washing the dishes, Chuang saw Jiang Jiran sitting in front of the dining table in a daze. After eating and drinking his fill, Chuang wanted to grab a cigarette. When he went out to look for Jiang Jiran today, he bought a pack of cigarettes. As if he had thought of something, Chuang put the cigarette back, pulled out a chair and sat in front of Jiang Jiran, and asked, "Are you pregnant?" Jiang Jiran suddenly opened her eyes wide, raised her head and looked at Chuang. She subconsciously wanted to deny it, but when she saw Chuang's eyes that saw through everything, she could only nod slightly. Chapter 11, Not as important as her. Sure enough, that dream was true. Now Chuang was extremely grateful that God had given her the hint. He grinned, not knowing what to say. Knowing in Mengjing that Jiang Jiran was pregnant was one thing, but hearing Jiang Jiran admit it in person was another, especially since the child was still in Jiang Jiran's belly. He always thought that he didn't like children and it didn't matter whether he had children or not, but now he didn't think so. The child was the continuation of his and Jiang Jiran's life. He had not felt much fatherly love, and he hoped to give his child everything he lacked. Jiang Jiran lowered her head and didn't see Chuang's jubilant look. She was still wondering what Chuang would do if he knew she was pregnant. Did Chuang really come to her to remarry because of the child? Whenever this thought comes to mind, my chest feels extremely sad. Chuang tried hard to suppress his excitement, cleared his throat and said, "I'll go to the hospital with you tomorrow for another checkup to see if there's anything you need to pay attention to. Do you have any toiletries at home?" After confirming that Jiang Jiran was pregnant, and thinking about her dream of miscarriage, Chuang thought it would be better to go to the hospital for another checkup. Jiang Jiran didn't know what to say. He felt that nothing he could say would be appropriate in this situation. He could only say awkwardly, "I go for every prenatal checkup on time. There's really nothing wrong. Why don't you go back first? I don't have a place for you to stay here." Chuang understood that Jiang Jiran still had resistance to him. He had been a jerk in the past, so it was normal for Jiang Jiran not to accept him in a short period of time. He could not eat hot tofu in a hurry, so he could only take it step by step. "You are unfamiliar with this place, and you are pregnant now, what are you going to do?" I can hire a nanny," Jiang Jiran said weakly. "Hire a nanny? Hire one until the baby is born. What about after the baby is born? Should you take care of the child yourself or hire a nanny? Do you have to go out to work? What if the nanny abuses the child at home while you are at work? Can you find a nanny that suits your taste?" Chuang is always to the point when negotiating with others. Many of the people coming and going in Lianlian are experienced old foxes. Chuang can even deal with them, let alone Jiang Jiran. As soon as these questions were raised, Jiang Jiran instantly became depressed. "Yes, I am not alone now. The doctor said that my fetus is unstable. What should I do if something really happens? When Chuang saw Jiang Jiran like this, he knew that she must have softened a bit. Chuang continued to strike while the iron was hot and said, "How about this first? We go back to City C, where you have friends too, and City C is more developed than City A in every way. If you don't want to remarry me, that's fine. If you divorce me, you don't want anything, so I'll buy a house and transfer the ownership to your name." Jiang Jiran was about to refuse when Chuang immediately interrupted. "If you don't want to buy it, you can rent a house first." Since Chuang said this, Jiang Jiran had nothing to say to refute him and could only nod. "Then let's rest here tonight, and we'll pack up and leave tomorrow." Seeing that Jiang Jiran had compromised, Chuang was in a good mood. If he hadn't gotten enough rest in the car last night and was afraid that something might happen during the 4-hour drive back, he would have really wanted to return to City C overnight. Jiang Jiran looked around the small rental house and said hesitantly, "Where are you going to sleep tonight?" "I'll sleep on the floor. It's not cold in this weather," Chuang said indifferently. "That's all we can do." At night, Jiang Jiran tossed and turned in his bed in the bedroom. Now that Chuang knows that she is pregnant, judging from her attitude, she will definitely not give up the child. As a mother, the child is the apple of her eye. Does she really have to go to the step of remarrying Chuang? During the 3 years of marriage with Chuang, Jiang Jiran was really tired of that kind of life. He was suspicious all day long and used countless things to confirm whether Chuang liked him or not. In the past 3 years, Jiang Jiran has become the person he hates the most. He is self-deprecating and suspicious, and revolves around Chuang, with his joys and sorrows all controlled by Chuang. He also thought of Li Mengyun, who suddenly appeared yesterday. She and Chuang Tsai are in the same circle, so how could he squeeze in? She was very touched that Chuang could lower his attitude to come to her. She knew that Chuang had shown his utmost sincerity by being so patient in letting her go back. It would be a lie to say that she had no feelings. After all, she had feelings for Chuang. Jiang Jiran didn't know how long he had been thinking about it, but he finally couldn't resist the sleepiness and fell into a deep sleep. Chuang, who slept in the living room, was not having an easy time either. Used to sleeping on a soft mattress, he tossed and turned on the hard floor and couldn't fall asleep. "I should have slept in the car earlier." After tossing and turning for a while, Chuang couldn't sleep, so he lit a cigarette and went to the balcony. The stars in the night sky were shining faintly. Chuang took a puff of cigarette with a relaxed expression and slowly exhaled smoke rings. Chuang didn't enjoy this peaceful moment for long before his cell phone rang. The sudden ringtone broke the tranquility of the night. Chuang frowned and took out his cell phone impatiently. The caller ID showed that it was Li Mengyun. As soon as the call was connected, Li Mengyun's anxious voice came out, "Brother, save me. Ms. Li, come on, there's one last cup left, let's drink it." There was a faint sound of laughter and persuading people to drink on the other end of the phone. Chuang's voice turned cold and he asked, "Mengyun, where are you?" 0 degree. Before he could finish his words, a beep sound came from the other side. Chuang turned and walked out of the balcony, found his car keys and held them in his hand, and took Jiang Jiran's rental house keys. With a bang, the door closed. Jiang Jiran, who should have been fast asleep, walked out of the bedroom. In fact, she had already woken up when Chuang's phone rang. The room was so small and the soundproofing was not good that Jiang Jiran could even vaguely hear what Chuang said. Jiang Jiran was particularly sensitive to the name Li Mengyun. Chuang thought she was asleep and did not lower his voice, but the words, "Mengyun, where are you?" still reached her ears. In Chuang's heart, perhaps she is really not as important as Li Mengyun. Jiang Jiran really didn't he understand. Since Chuang cared so much about Li Mengyun, why didn't he marry her? She still remembered that not long after they got married, Chuang finally came home. She had just prepared the meal when Li Mengyun called Chuang away. This kind of thing happened many times. Once, she had a fever and she rarely acted coquettishly with Chuang, asking Chuang to stay at home with her. At 1 o'clock in the morning, Li Mengyun called and said that her car broke down on the highway. Chuang went to help her without saying a word. After being married to Chuang for 3 years, Jiang Jiran had never enjoyed the treatment of being able to come whenever Ji Chuang called. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't sad. Even though Jiang Jiran knew in her heart that she and Ji Chuang were divorced and had nothing to do with each other anymore, she still couldn't help but let the tears flow out of her eyes. Chapter 12. I still want to leave after being beaten. The door of box for 44 of 0 degree bar was kicked open from the outside. Inside the luxurious box of about 40 to 50 square meters, a dozen men and women were sitting or standing. Some were drinking and playing finger-guessing games, some were dancing, and some were playing mahjong. The sudden sound of kicking the door made the people near the door look over. Ji Chuang ignored their different expressions and glanced around with cold eyes. When he saw Li Mengyun sitting in the corner and being forced to drink, he suddenly felt cold all over. Ji Chuang walked over quickly, pulled away the man who was lying on Li Mengyun and handing him wine, and punched the man hard. Everyone was stunned by this sudden scene. Before they could recover, Ji Chuang had already pinned the man down and started beating him. Ouch, ouch, stop hitting me, you're all fucking dead, come and save me. The man's shrill cry for help woke everyone up, and someone rushed forward to pull Ji Chuang away. The man who was knocked to the ground was helped up in a panic. He wanted to kick Ji Chuang, but Ji Chuang quickly caught the flying foot and twisted it with his backhand, and the man fell to the ground again. When the onlookers saw the man being beaten so badly, 4 or 5 of them rushed towards Ji Chuang with their fists waved. Ji Chuang dodged while finding the right moment to punch. His fists were fast and accurate, and he soon knocked the people who rushed up to him to the ground. When the others saw how ruthless Ji Chuang was, no one dared to step forward for a moment. Ji Chuang's skills were acquired through fighting training since he was a child. When he was little and had no fighting skills at all, he already knew to go after people's weak spots based on his instinct. When he grew up, he received professional training in boxing and he has never lost a fight. Although Ji Chuang has basically not taken action in recent years, his skills are still there, and it is still easy for him to deal with this group of good-for-nothings. Li Mengyun's eyes were red and swollen, her clothes were slightly messy, and it was unknown how long she had been crying. Her weak and fragile appearance made her look even more lovable. Ji Chuang's expression remained unchanged, and he said to Li Mengyun, "Let's go." Li Mengyun followed Ji Chuang closely, but was stopped before she reached the door. "You still want to leave after I beat you?" The man lying on the ground stood up again, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said viciously. Just now, while Ji Chuang was fighting with others, he had already called Brother Hu to come over. Jin Hu is a well-known figure in City A and is very close to men. When something like this happens in City A, it would be better to let Brother Hu come and support him. Ji Chuang took out a cigarette and put it between his lips. He lit it and took a slow puff, then said calmly, "You're not leaving, but you want me to stay for a couple of drinks." Ji Chuang's arrogance was so arrogant that the man was so angry that his liver hurt. "In City A, no one has dared to attack me, but you are so brave. If you offend me, I will make sure you can't stay in City A." The man spoke to the ground with a fierce look on his face. Li Mengyun tugged at the corner of Ji Chuang's clothes worriedly. Ji Chuang didn't know the man's background, but she did know. The economy of City A is not very developed, and there are no powerful people here, but this man is not from City A. He is a big boss who came from Kyoto to invest in the City A resort. The man has some background in Kyoto. That background is nothing in Kyoto where there are many powerful people, but in City A, he is a figure that every company wants to support. Li Mengyun only knew that no one dared to mess with Ji Chuang in City C, but that was only limited to City C. If you offend the boss who comes to City A to invest, you will probably be in big trouble. Li Mengyun felt a little regretful. She had a low level of education and barely went to a technical secondary school after finishing junior high school. She couldn't find a good job. After Ji Chuang became rich, he arranged her to work in a friend's company, and Li Mengyun went to the sales department. In City C, everyone had to give some face to Ji Yi. Ji Chuang was in charge of his sister's business, and basically signed the contract without any difficulty. In recent years, Li Mengyun's work has been going smoothly because of Ji Chuang's reputation. Originally, it was not her turn to discuss business in City A this time, but Li Mengyun found out from Lao He that Ji Chuang was in City A, so she took the initiative to find the manager and took on the job. The manager knew Li Mengyun's background. Seeing that Li Mengyun volunteered, he didn't say anything and directly sent her to City A. But I didn't expect this to happen. Li Mengyun originally planned to call Jiu Chuang to pick her up after getting drunk, but she didn't expect this group of people to be so presumptuous. They forced her to drink and waited for her to get drunk so that the boss in Kyoto would send her back. Thinking about how the man had just taken advantage of her, Li Mengyun felt like vomiting. Jiu Chuang didn't listen to what the man said at all. He sat down lazily on the sofa and crossed his legs. When Li Mengyun saw Jiu Chuang like this, his body trembled slightly. She wasn't sure what Jiu Chuang meant. She knew that Jiu Chuang was a good fighter, but no matter how good he was, he couldn't defeat the other side because they had more people. The man pointed at Jiu Chuang and cursed, "You bastard, what are you pretending to be? I want someone to beat you to a pulp." After cursing, he was still not satisfied and continued, "You son of a bitch. I'll make you kneel down and apologize to me later." Jiu Chuang narrowed his black eyes slightly, with a playful look on his face. No matter how he was scolded, Jiu Chuang was like an old monk in meditation, without any movement. He just said calmly, "The barking of dogs here is too loud. You? What to do?" Unable to beat him, the man could only pray in his heart that Jin Hu would come quickly. "Brother." Li Mengyun moved to Jiu Chuang's side nervously, "How about I apologize to them?" Li Mengyun is in the same circle as Jiu Chuang, and she knows almost everything that their circle does. But she knew that Jiu Chuang didn't like girls like this. Since she met Jiu Chuang, she had been much more restrained in front of Jiu Chuang. Every time we went out to play, Li Mengyun would watch from the side. Li Mengyun understood everything that Jiu Chuang and the others were playing, unlike Jiang Jiran, who was confused by everything and had no common topics with Jiu Chuang and the others, and felt awkward every time he sat there. When Li Mengyun was in technical secondary school, she followed Jiu Chuang all day long and became very familiar with all of Jiu Chuang's friends. With their care over the years, no one dared to cause trouble for Li Mengyun in such a chaotic environment as the technical secondary school. However, after pretending to be weak for so long, Li Mengyun has now become a little timid. The man became even more proud when he heard Li Mengyun's words. "Sure, come over and have a few more drinks with me as your apology. I can consider letting him leave when I feel better." The man felt that Li Mengyun had no tact. It was not easy to come out to discuss business, get a contract, and not drink. Which business deal is not done over a dinner table? Li Mengyun was disgusted by the man's words, and Jiu Chuang did not stand up to speak for her, so Li Mengyun felt very aggrieved. Jiu Chuang didn't take these words to heart at all. In such a tense environment, his thoughts drifted to Jiang Jiran. Chapter 13 Brother Tiger, it was that guy who hurt me. After 3 years of marriage, Jiu Chuang still doesn't know what Jiang Jiran likes to eat. He is really not a qualified husband. Jiang Jiran is too thin, so she needs to eat more food during her pregnancy. He didn't know much about this, so he had to find an experienced nanny to take care of Jiang Jiran. As for his unreliable mother, forget it. The people in the box looked at Jiu Chuang sitting on the sofa, smoking leisurely, and were confused for a moment. Where did this young man come from? He is sitting here waiting for others to call for help. Is there something wrong with his brain? This strange atmosphere did not last long, and the door of the box was pushed open heavily. As soon as the man saw the person coming, he immediately went to greet him. "Brother Hu, that kid was the one who hurt me." The man pointed to Jiu Chuang, who was smoking on the sofa, and continued, "I came to your city to do business, not to suffer. Please help me get this place back and teach this guy a lesson." "Don't worry, Mr. Zhao. I feel bad for letting you get into trouble in City A." Jin Hu looked in the direction the man's finger pointed and could only see a young man in his 20s. Jin Hu smiled sarcastically. When he received the call from Mr. Zhao, he thought that some boss in City A was so blind that he offended the god of wealth of City A. Generally speaking, those who dare to cause trouble at 0 degree all have some connections. Who knew the troublemaker was so young? There is no brother in City A who is so young that he can cause trouble in 0 degree. He must be a foreigner. Young people nowadays are really fearless and brave, and they don't even ask before taking action. Jin Hu walked over, put one foot on the table in front of Jiu Chuang, and shouted in a deep voice, "Boy, you dare to hurt people in City A, you are too arrogant. I can call the police right now and ask them to take you to the police station." "Brother Hu, don't waste your time talking to him. Either call the police or beat him up first," Mr. Zhao said angrily beside him. Seeing Jinhu coming, the people around him suddenly became confident and started to join in. "Brother Hu, I think we should beat him up and then send him to the police station for a few days." "Yeah, Brother Tiger, he is simply provoking you. Everyone knows that 0° is your territory." Those young masters were all talking about asking Jinhu to teach Jiu Chuang a lesson, and Li Mengyun became more and more anxious. Seeing that Jiu Chuang would not bow his head, Li Mengyun suddenly came up with an idea. "If I can handle this matter well and get them both out safely, will Jiu Chuang look at me differently?" Li Mengyun thought about it and finally figured out what Mr. Zhao cared about. After so many years of doing business, Li Mengyun is not a fool. Before coming here, Li Mengyun investigated Mr. Zhao's background. Mr. Zhao's real name is Zhao Weigua, a typical phoenix man who flew out of the mountains. Like Jiu Chuang's father, he is also a son-in-law who made his fortune with the help of his wife and has reached his current position step by step. However, his wife's family has also been rising rapidly. No matter how hard Zhao Weigua tries, he can never surpass his wife's family. "Now I have to behave myself well at my wife's house with my tail between my legs." What he feared most was his wife, so he only dared to stir up trouble in City A, far away from Kyoto. If she threatened Zhao Weigua to tell his wife about these things, Zhao Weigua would probably have some reservations. Li Mengyun raised the corners of her mouth and said to Zhao Weigua, "Boss Zhao, you are so free and easy in City A, living a life of feasting and revelry. Does your sister-in-law know about it at home? Has your sister-in-law ever seen the little sister you raised in Yulaiju?" Zhao Weigua's face changed when he heard Li Mengyun's threatening words. "Wait until you drink with me and make me drunk, then I'll tell your sister-in-law if she knows." Zhao Weigua licked his lips and stared at the proud breasts in front of Li Mengyun. This brainless woman dared to threaten him. What he hated most was others using his wife to threaten him. Hearing this, Li Mengyun's eyes turned red and Jiu Chuang frowned slightly. "Tiger." The call of "Hu Zi" made Jinhu's body tremble. The light in the box was a little dim, and Jinhu couldn't really tell who it was from a distance. Jinhu didn't say anything or take any action just now, but when he got closer, he felt that the young man in front of him looked very familiar. He wasn't sure for a moment. If it really is that person, this matter today is probably not over. Seeing that this woman's clothes are disheveled, Zhao Weigua will not be polite to her. If he touches that man's woman, can Zhao Weigua return to Kyoto smoothly? Jiu Chuang stood up and kicked Jinhu's feet off the table. The sound seemed to penetrate ice. "It's been so long since we last met. You're doing better and better in City A. Do I have to send myself to the police station even though I'm here to help the weak?" Jinhu finally saw it clearly now, it really was Jiu Chuang's ancestor. People around. It's so awesome that he would help others when he sees injustice. Jinhu's knees went weak and he almost fell to the ground. He had seen Jiu Chuang's methods before, so how could anything good happen to him? "Master Jiu, Xiaohu is blind and really didn't see it was you." Jinhu said with a smug look, "You came to City A without even saying hello to me. I'm really sorry for letting these blind people bump into my sister-in-law." When Li Mengyun heard Jinhu call her sister-in-law, her unhappiness disappeared and a shy joy was revealed on her face. Jiu Chuang didn't explain either. These were all unimportant people and there was no need to explain. Zhao Weigua and others were stunned when they saw Jinhu being so humble. Jinhu is a well-known big boss in City A after all. When has anyone ever seen him speaking to others in such a humble manner? Who is this young man? "Brother Hu, what are you doing?" Zhao Weigua went up to him and asked. Jinhu still didn't know to what extent Zhao Weigua had pissed off Jiu Chuang, so he didn't dare to pay any attention to him. But Zhao Weigua was the financial sponsor of City A after all, so he couldn't offend him. He could only point out, "This is Mr. Jiu, the boss of Lianyan in City C." Everyone present was stunned. There are many people in the circle who don't know Jiu Chuang, but there are very few people who don't know City Lianyan. City A is not too far from City C, and all of them have been to City C to see its beauty. It was a famous entertainment city where many people spent a lot of money. Although Jinhu has a relatively successful business in City A, he still has to give some face to someone like Zhao Weigua who comes from Kyoto. Only when such bosses from other places come to cooperate and discuss investment can their own enterprises go further, so they all have to respect them. But Jiu Chuang is different. His relationships are complicated and no one knows who he is close to, but everyone knows that if he dares to open an entertainment city that is famous in country Z, his ability must not be underestimated. Zhao Weiguo was also a little scared at this time. Many people in the upper-class circles in Kyoto knew about Lin Yan, and there were also people in powerful circles in Kyoto who were protecting Lin Yan. Having offended the person in power in Lin Yan, can he still return to Kyoto smoothly? And he was so suicidal that he bumped into Li Mengyun. Thinking of this, Zhao Weiguo's eyes went dark and he almost fainted. Chapter 14. Do you like me? Chuang took out his cell phone and checked the time. After all this trouble, it was almost 3 o'clock in the morning. Chuang pushed Jinhu away and walked towards the door. He thought that if he rushed back, he could take advantage of the time to get some sleep and get enough rest so that he could drive back to City C tomorrow. Seeing Chuang leaving her behind and about to leave, Li Mengyun asked in a trembling voice, "Brother, aren't you going to take me back?" Chuang said without even turning his head, "Jinhu, please send my sister to their hotel." Chuang felt relieved to let Jinhu send Li Mengyun back. As for Zhao Weiguo, Chuang didn't take him seriously at all. He beat up Zhao Weiguo, which was also a way to vent Li Mengyun's anger. That's how things are in the business world, there's no need for him to quibble over it. Zhao Weiguo was instantly relieved when he saw that Chuang had no intention of causing trouble for him. Jinhu caught up and smiled at Chuang in a flattering manner. "Master where are you going? Is there anything I can do for you?" Chuang handed a cigarette to Jinhu and said, "Just help me send my sister back to their hotel." Li Mengyun walked up, raised her pale face and looked at Chuang, and said, "Won't you send me back? I'll be scared." After spending so many years with Chuang, Li Mengyun knows him very well and knows what to do to make Chuang soften his heart. Chuang hesitated for a long time before saying, "Forget it, I'll take you there." Chuang thought that Li Mengyun had been greatly frightened tonight, and he couldn't afford it if something happened again, so he decided to go and send her back to their hotel. Jinhu watched for a while and said tactfully, "Master I'm leaving first. Call me if you have anything else." "Yeah." Chuang responded, took Li Mengyun to his car, and they both got in. Chuang asked Li Mengyun for their hotel address and sent Li Mengyun there as quickly as possible. "I thought I could leave after seeing Li Mengyun off, but Li Mengyun started crying and said she was scared and didn't dare to go upstairs. There was no other choice, Chuang could only send her into the room and stayed with her there for a long time. These 2 days, Chuang has been driving around and highly concentrating. Even though he is used to staying up late, he can't hold on any longer. "I was trying so hard that I somehow fell asleep on the sofa." Seeing that Chuang was already asleep, Li Mengyun squatted down and took a photo of Chuang sleeping with his mobile phone. Li Mengyun called the front desk and asked the hotel to send up a quilt for Chuang to cover himself with. This was the first time she and Chuang were alone in a space, and Li Mengyun felt a secret joy in her heart. Before closing her eyes, Li Mengyun was still thinking that this was a step forward in her relationship with Chuang. As for Jiang Jiran, since he's already divorced, he can forget about stirring up any more trouble. Chuang slept until noon the next day. The midday sun shone through the curtains onto Chuang's face, and he frowned. The moment he opened his eyes, Chuang was a little confused and didn't know where he was. "It took me a long time to find my phone, and I jumped up immediately after taking a look. It's almost 12 o'clock. Li Mengyun was still sleeping on the bed, and Chuang then remembered where he was. Without waking up Li Mengyun, Chuang opened the door and walked out. He also wants to find Jiang Jiran and take her back to City C. On their way, Chuang called Jiang Jiran's new number that Lao He sent her over and over again, but the phone was always turned off. Chuang's uneasiness gradually grew, and he sped all the way until he finally arrived downstairs of Jiang Jiran's residential area. Chuang climbed up to the 4th floor in one breath. Without even taking a breath, he took out the key and opened the door. The rental house is clean and tidy, the windows are bright, and sunlight shines into the room through the transparent glass. Chuang didn't even bother to take off his shoes and rushed in. He searched the small rental house thoroughly, but didn't see Jiang Jiran. Chuang sat down on the sofa tiredly, thinking in annoyance, "Jiang Jiran, has he left again?" Just when Chuang was at a loss, he heard the sound of a key turning at the door. Jiu Chuangli immediately jumped up from the sofa, but before he could do anything, Jiang Jiran walked in. Seeing Jiu Chuang standing motionless in front of the sofa, Jiang Jiran asked in confusion, "What's wrong with you?" Jiu Chuang took 2 steps at a time and walked over to hug Jiang Jiran, saying in a muffled voice, "I thought you left again. Have you eaten?" Jiang Jiran ignored Jiu Chuang's words, broke free from his arms, turned and walked towards the kitchen. In fact, Jiang Jiran wanted to leave. When Jiang Jiran woke up in the morning, he found that his brown secretions had increased, so he immediately went to the hospital for an injection to preserve the pregnancy. The doctor said that if I didn't stay in bed to take care of the baby, there was a high possibility that I would lose the baby. She really wanted to keep this child. Jiang Jiran remembered a sentence she had read in a novel before: "The person you like in high school is someone you will remember for a lifetime." From the age of 16 to 25, for 9 years, Jiu Chuang was Jiang Jiran's entire youth. The day she married Jiu Chuang was probably the happiest moment in Jiang Jiran's life. She thought that Jiu Chuang chose to marry her because he had some feelings for her. As long as Jiu Chuang takes that step forward, Jiang Jiran will have the confidence that she will take the remaining 99 steps. But as I walked along, I realized that this road was full of bitterness and grievances. Being with Jiu Chuang makes Jiang Jiran feel that everyone in the world is more important than her, his wife, in Jiu Chuang's heart. The tear that fell from the corner of Jiang Jiran's eye disappeared into the sink. Jiu Chuang leaned against the kitchen door frame, looking at Jiang Jiran's back as he bent over to wash vegetables, feeling a sense of sadness. Jiu Chuang's heart suddenly tightened. Jiu Chuang felt distressed for Jiang Jiran like this. In the 3 years of marriage, Jiu Chuang and Jiang Jiran actually spent very little time together, and Jiang Jiran always gave Jiu Chuang the impression that he was indifferent to everything. When he goes out, Jiang Jiran won't ask him where he is going. If he stays out all night, Jiang Jiran won't call him to come back. Jiu Chuang really wanted to know whether Jiang Jiran liked him or not. Thinking this way, he asked the question, "Jiang Jiran, are you marrying me because you love me?" Hearing Jiu Chuang's sudden question, Jiang Jiran didn't know how to answer. Is it necessary to tell him about the secret crush of youth and the 9 years of obsession? Jiang Jiran asked back, "What about you? Did you marry me because you like me?" "No." Jiu Chuang said affirmatively, "I like you a little, but not completely, because you are suitable to be my wife." If Lu Qianqian were here, he would definitely scold Jiu Chuang to death. How straight must Jiu Chuang be to say such things to his wife? After hearing Jiu Chuang's answer, Jiang Jiran bit his lower lip, grasped the edge of the basket with both hands, and used a lot of strength to suppress the sadness. Jiang Jiran turned his back to Jiu Chuang. Jiu Chuang could not see Jiang Jiran's sad and forbearing expression, and continued, "I actually don't know whether I like you or how much I like you, but your leaving makes me feel uneasy. I want to remarry you." Chapter 15 Return to City C. Jiang Jiran didn't want to continue this topic with Jiu Chuang. This kind of discussion is particularly meaningless to Jiang Jiran. She also couldn't understand Jiu Chuang's train of thought. She only understood that Jiu Chuang said, "I don't like it, but I like it a little bit." That's enough, isn't it? What do you want to eat for lunch? Jiang Jiran changed the subject. If you don't want anything in particular, I'll just cook whatever you want. Jiang Jiran's casual approach is not casual at all. After the dishes were served, Jiu Chuang realized that they were all his favorite dishes, and asked in surprise, "We have the same taste." Jiang Jiran really wanted to roll his eyes at himself. What kind of masochistic physique is this? As he was cooking, all the dishes he made were Jiu Chuang's favorites. I felt sad again after listening to Jiu Chuang's words. Jiu Chuang didn't even know what he liked to eat. Yeah. Not wanting to explain more, Jiang Jiran sat down and ate quietly. Jiu Chuang secretly memoized the dishes made by Jiang Jiran and planned to prepare them for her according to her taste when he returned to City C. "Have you packed your things?" "We've packed up." Jiang Jiran said, "We can leave after dinner." "What about your house and things here?" "I asked my colleagues to help with the packing and vacating the lease." Jiang Jiran went to the supermarket to find the manager today. The house was introduced by her and she was also familiar with the landlord. Jiang Jiran asked her to help him cancel the lease when she was free. She could take away the things she wanted in the house and leave the things she didn't want to the landlord to see if he needed them. Jiang Jiran had only lived in this house for a few days and had not bought any large items, but he had already packed his 2 suitcases. After dinner, Jiang Jiran and Chuang got in the car and drove back to City C. No conversation along the way. Jiang Jiran slept soundly all the way and woke up only when they were almost at City C. Chuang. Jiang Jiran looked up at him, and Chuang's heart beat faster. Please take me to Chu's place. Jiang Jiran decided to return to City C at the last minute, but she hadn't found a place to live yet. It was impossible for her to go back to that cold home with Chuang, so she thought about staying with her best friend for a while. No need, I found a place for you and arranged everything. Chuang turned the steering wheel skillfully, his handsome profile full of coldness. Jiang Jiran has always known that Chuang is handsome, and this kind of handsomeness is especially attractive to women. Coupled with his power in City C, there must be many girls outside who are eager to welcome him. You go live in Jinhaiyuan for a while. I rented a house for you there. It's closer to the hospital. Without hearing Jiang Jiran's answer, Chuang added another sentence. Okay. Jiang Jiran agreed. It is difficult for others to change what Chuang has decided, and Jiang Jiran does not intend to go against him. Now she just wants to keep the child and give birth to him safely. Jinhaiyuan is a well-known mid to high-end residential area in City C. The environment and property are both good, and it only takes a dozen minutes to walk to the hospital. Jiang Jiran was not pretentious and just stayed there for now. She had other plans for other things. The car drove smoothly into the underground garage of City C. Chuang took down Jiang Jiran's luggage and called Tang Rui to send him a set of clothes. In the weather at the end of May, Chuang didn't even take a good shower when he went to City A. He just took a quick shower in Jiang Jiran's rental house without changing his clothes. It was Tang Rui who found the house and bought all the things there. Not long after Chuang and Jiang Jiran entered the door, Tang Rui brought the clothes. Mr. Jiu, madam. Tang Rui greeted Chuang and Jiang Jiran with a smile. Assistant Tang. Jiang Jiran also smiled and replied, I have divorced your CEO Jiu. You can call me Xiao Jiang or Miss Jiang. Tang Rui simply ignored Jiang Jiran's words and said to Chuang, Boss Jiu, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Before leaving, she waved to Jiang Jiran and said, Madam, I'm leaving first. If you feel uncomfortable living here or need to buy anything, please call me again. Being able to stay with Chuang for so many years, Tang Rui is very discerning. Looking at Mr. Gu's expression, it is obvious that he wants to rekindle his old relationship with his wife. He is so tired of living that he dares to call his wife Miss Jiang. While waiting for the elevator, Tang Rui thought, Mr. Jiu is really a bit of a masochist. He didn't go home to cultivate the relationship with his wife for 3 years after marriage, and only showed his affection to her after the divorce. What's the point? How does that sentence go? If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have done it in the first place. Chuang, who was diligently helping Jiang Jiran take out clothes in the house, did not have the chance to hear their complaints from his right-hand assistant. He frowned at the stack of prenatal examination results he took out. With his limited education, he couldn't understand what these meant. He asked Jiang Jiran, did the doctor say anything when you went for a checkup? At this point, there was no point in hiding it from Chuang. Jiang Jiran said, the doctor said my progesterone level is too low. I need to stay in bed to take care of the baby, otherwise there will be signs of miscarriage. Hearing Jiang Jiran's words, Chuang suddenly became nervous. Sure enough, the dream was not without warning. In his previous life, he did not go to find Jiang Jiran. Jiang Jiran was pregnant and alone in City A. She had to work in a supermarket and take care of herself. How could her body possibly handle it? Chuang pursed his lips and said, let's go to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow morning. I'll stay here tonight. Jiang Jiran was about to speak when Chuang interrupted her, aren't there 2 rooms here? You have one and I have one. I'm not living with you. After saying that, he went straight into the master bedroom bathroom to take a shower. Jiang Jiran really has no way to deal with Chuang. Is this still a divorce? Although she has never been divorced, she also knows that divorce means separation. What is the point of being entangled so much? When Jiu Chuang came out of the shower, Jiang Jiran was still sitting on the sofa sulking. The house Tang Rui rented had 2 bedrooms and a living room. The largest master bedroom, which came with a bathroom, was reserved for Jiang Jiran. There is no bathroom in Jiu Chuang's room, so he takes a shower in the bathroom in the master bedroom. Jiu Chuang was so shameless that he came out without wearing any clothes and just wrapped in a bath towel. Jiang Jiran suddenly saw it, his face turned red, and he stammered, Why are you not wearing any clothes? I'm going to bed soon, why should I get dressed? Jiu Chuang said confidently, besides, it's not like you haven't seen it before. Jiang Jiran was really convinced. Did this guy know that he wanted to avoid suspicion because they were divorced? Jiu Chuang ignored Jiang Jiran and walked around the living room wrapped in a bath towel. He just wanted to seduce Jiang Jiran. He still remembered that when they were making love with Jiang Jiran was always shy and didn't dare to look at him. Only at that time did Jiu Chuang feel that Jiang Jiran loved him. They will remarry sooner or later, so what? Jiang Jiran really couldn't stand Jiu Chuang's blatant seduction, so he got up and went into the bedroom. With a bang, Jiang Jiran slammed the door shut with great force as if to vent his anger. Seeing the closed door, Jiu Chuang returned to his room with a smile. Chapter 16 Encounter with Li Mengyun. The next morning, Jiang Jiran got up early and cooked some cold noodles. Jiu Chuang opened his eyes when he smelled the fragrance. Jiang Jiran's cooking skills are really amazing. Why didn't I notice it before? After breakfast, the two planned to take a walk to the hospital. As soon as he walked out of the community gate, he ran into the person Jiang Jiran least wanted to see. Li Mengyun was obviously stunned when he saw 2 people walking side by side. Brother Chuang, why are you here? Li Mengyun asked with a smile, a flash of jealousy in his eyes. The jealousy disappeared so quickly that Jiang Jiran was not sure if he was seeing things. Jiang Jiran felt that Jiu Chuang was particularly patient and gentle towards his godsister. Take your sister-in-law to the hospital for a prenatal checkup. Your sister-in-law is pregnant. Looking at the undisguised joy on Jiu Chuang's face, Li Mengyun clenched his hands hanging at both sides into fists, almost breaking his nails. I'll go with you. Li Mengyun said with a smile. She wanted to go and see whether Jiang Jiran was really pregnant or was lying to Jiu Chuang. It has been 3 years, and she has never been pregnant, but she got pregnant even though they were getting divorced. Could it be that Jiang Jiran did something to this? No. Jiang Jiran refused mercilessly, I don't like so many people accompanying me to the prenatal checkup. If you want to go, then Jiu Chuang, you don't have to go either. How can this be? In his previous life, Jiu Chuang was so confused that he didn't even know he had the chance to be a father. This life is the first time for him to truly accompany his children, so how could he miss it? Mengyun, don't go. Your sister-in-law and I can go. Jiu Chuang carefully tried to hold Jiang Jiran's hand, but Jiang Jiran slapped him away. We're already divorced, don't bother with this. Jiang Jiran walked forward while speaking, not giving Jiu Chuang any face at all. A man like Jiu Chuang, whose face is thicker than a city wall, doesn't need any face. He doesn't get angry when being despised. He just follows Jiang Jiran's steps. He said that his wife was just being pretentious and that divorce was just a formality and that they would remarry sooner or later. He really didn't know what Jiang Jiran was feeling awkward about. When Jiang Jiran heard Jiu Chuang's word, Mengyun, his heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. Jiu Chuang called himself Jiang Jiran with both his given name and surname, and called his godsister Mengyun, which was really affectionate. Are all men like this? He is rude to his wife and gentle and kind to other women. Scumbag. Li Mengyun felt uncomfortable looking at the backs of Jiu Chuang and Jiang Jiran. She had been with Jiu Chuang for so many years, and she thought she could get the upper hand by being close to him, but who knew that in the end it would be all in vain. Over the years, she has been well-behaved and sensible, and has tried her best to play the role of Jiu Chuang's sister, just so that one day Jiu Chuang can see her good side. When Jiu Chuang was down and out, although Li Mengyun saved him, she looked down on him. What future can a small-time gangster with no power, no influence and no education have? But when Jiu Chuang said he would protect her and repay her kindness, she still agreed and acknowledged Jiu Chuang as her brother. Who knew that this brother was so capable and actually climbed to the top position in City C? If I had been his girlfriend back then, would everything have been different, thanks to the life-saving grace he gave me? No matter what Li Mengyun thought, Jiu Chuang and Jiang Jiran didn't care. Now they were all worried about what the doctor said. The doctor suggested that Jiang Jiran be hospitalized to protect the fetus. Jiang Jiran has signs of congenital miscarriage, and only hospitalization can save the baby. Jiu Chuang, who had lived a new life, was particularly concerned about Jiang Jiran and the child, and went to complete the hospitalization procedures without saying a word. Jiang Jiran was still reluctant to be hospitalized. But for the sake of the children, she didn't say anything. While Jiu Chuang went to pay the bill, Jiang Jiran called her best friend Su Yang. "Hello, who is this?" Su Yang looked at the number on her phone and confirmed that she had never seen it before. Jiang Jiran said softly, "Chirp, it's me." Hearing Jiang Jiran's voice, Su Yang's roar immediately sounded. "Jiang Jiran, you little heartless guy, what happened to you these days? You even changed your phone number." Su Yang was extremely angry and even said that she was her best friend for life and that she changed her number without even telling her. "I was wrong." In order to appease Su Yang's anger, Jiang Jiran was particularly humble. "I'm divorced, but I didn't tell you because I was afraid that Jiu Chuang would disturb you." After hearing Jiang Jiran mention Jiu Chuang, Su Yang dared to ask, "Are you okay?" Only Su Yang knew how many years Jiang Jiran had loved Jiu Chuang and how much grievance he had suffered. Divorce was a relief for her. Jiang Jiran replied, "I'm fine. I'll tell you more when we meet again." "Okay." Seeing Jiu Chuang coming back, Jiang Jiran hung up the phone. "The hospitalization procedures have been completed. I have prepared a single room for you." When Jiu Chuang went to handle the hospitalization procedures, he called Tang Rui and asked him to find an experienced confinement nanny to take care of Jiang Jiran. His mother, who only cares about his father, is unreliable. Jiang Jiran stared at Jiu Chuang and asked, "I asked you before, and you said you didn't like children and thought they were troublesome. Do you suddenly like them now?" Before Jiu Chuang could figure out how to answer, Jiang Jiran continued, "If I don't remarry you, will you fight with me for custody of the child?" Jiu Chuang rubbed his fingers on his forehead and said in a gentle voice, "No, I won't snatch the child from you." After getting Jiu Chuang's affirmative answer, Jiang Jiran finally breathed a sigh of relief. What she has been worried about these days is that Jiu Chuang might snatch the child from her. In City C, no one dared to take Jiu Chuang's lawsuit. In other words, if Jiang Jiran really wanted to sue Jiu Chuang and fight with him for custody, no lawyer would be willing to take over the case. What Jiang Jiran didn't know was that when Jiu Chuang said he wouldn't snatch the child away, he meant that he would do everything he could to get them to remarry. Jiu Chuang, who has been reborn, has an obsession with Jiang Jiran. Jiang Jiran did not have a good end in her previous life because of me, so the only way to compensate her in this life is to keep her by his side. After everything was settled, Jiu Junyi got the news from somewhere and came to Jiang Jiran's ward. Jiang Jiran has always known that Jiu Junyi doesn't like him. It was also an accident that Jiang Jiran was able to marry Jiu Chuang. Jiu Junyi wanted Jiu Chuang to marry her best friend's daughter Jiang Shiyuan, but Jiu Chuang didn't want to. Before her death, Jiang Jiran's grandmother entrusted Jiang Jiran to Grandma Jiu Chuang, who is also Jiu Junyi's biological mother. Jiu Chuang's grandmother particularly likes Jiang Jiran, and she also wants to find someone to tie Jiu Chuang down and force him to marry Jiang Jiran. Jiang Jiran was very unfamiliar with this mother-in-law. In the 3 years of marriage, Jiu Junyi rarely contacted them. Jiang Jiran only knew that after the Jiu family fell into decline, Jiang Jiran put all his energy into taking care of Jiu Chuang's father Jiao Tingfeng. What is this mother-in-law who never cares about Jiu Chuang and is unwilling to talk to her even when they meet coming to the hospital? Chapter 17, Grandma is coming. Jiu Junyi came with Jiang Shiyuan. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Jiu Chuang asked in a bad tone. "What are you talking about?" Jiu Junyi scolded, "I was just wondering what you are doing here. I heard you are divorced." Jiu Chuang looked at Jiu Junyi with a half smile and said coldly, "Heard? Who told you that?" Jiu Junyi's face froze, and she said unnaturally, "Don't worry about who told me this. Since you are divorced, it is not appropriate for you to stay together anymore. Why don't you go back quickly?" "Where to go back to?" Jiu Chuang raised his eyebrows and shot back, "My wife and children are here, where should I go?" Jiu Chuang took out the apples that Tang Rui bought, peeled them, cut them into thin slices with a knife, put them on a plate, inserted a toothpick and handed them to Jiang Jiran. Mom, when you have time, go play mahjong, go shopping, and get beauty treatments. You never took care of me when I was little. Now that I'm older, you should stop trying to take care of me. Jiu Junyi was so angry at Jiu Chuang that her face turned blue. Seeing this, Jiang Shiyuan quickly stroked Jiu Junyi's chest and persuaded her, Brother Jiu Chuang, my godmother has angina pectoris. You should also consider her health. Jiang Jiran, standing awkwardly aside, really didn't know what to say. When Jiang Jiran first got married, she would try to please this stubborn mother-in-law every now and then. But later, she realized that her mother-in-law's heart was made of iron and could not be penetrated even by a drop of water, so she simply gave up. As for Jiang Shiyuan, Jiang Jiran felt that he couldn't see through her. You're not as considerate as Yuan. Jiu Junyi took a long time to speak, can you please stop making me angry? At this point, Jiu Junyi got excited again, not caring whether Jiang Jiran was there or not, and continued, I told you to marry Yuan but you refused. You listened to your grandmother and married someone with a tough life. You don't even have any relatives. This was very unpleasant to hear. Jiang Jiran's face changed and he said coldly, Madam Gao, a well-educated person would not use other people's background to make a fuss. Seeing that the war was about to break out, Jiu Chuang quickly pushed his mother out. Go now. Jiu Chuang waved his hand to his mother and said, Jiran is pregnant, don't come here to provoke her. If anything happens to her, don't blame me for falling out with you as a mother. When Jiu Junyi looked at her son who was so cruel to her, tears immediately welled up in her eyes. It's true that a grown-up child should not be kept. Did I carry you for 10 months and give birth to you just to make you angry? Humph, Jiu Chuang snorted coldly, you have only been giving birth to me and not raising me these years. What qualifications do you have to interfere in my life? Jiu Junyi was about to say something else, but Jiu Chuang interrupted her coldly. Go away. I'm not in the mood to argue with you right now. After saying that, Jiu Chuang walked into the ward and closed the door. Jiu Junyi had no choice but to leave with Jiang Shiyuan in hatred. In fact, she came this time to see if Jiang Jiran was really pregnant. In fact, she was very happy the moment she heard that Jiu Chuang was getting divorced. Jiang Shiyuan still doesn't have a boyfriend, so she did want Jiang Shiyuan to marry Jiu Chuang. Jiang Jiran was not the daughter-in-law she wanted, and Jiu Junyi did not enjoy being a mother-in-law. Jiu Junyi would only be truly happy if the daughter-in-law was replaced by Jiang Shiyuan. After all, Jiang Shiyuan grew up under his care, and he has such a close relationship with her mother, so it couldn't be better for them to be closer relatives. Jiu Junyi held Jiang Shiyuan's hand and comforted her, Shiyuan, you have always liked our Chuang. Now that our Chuang is divorced, you should also try hard to make our Chuang agree to marry you. Jiang Shiyuan lowered her head and said softly, Godmother, if Jiu Chuang doesn't want to, you can't force him. Love is something that requires both of us to be willing. I can't force him. Didn't his grandmother force him to marry Jiang Jiran? Why can't I force him? Jiu Junyi said unconvinced. Jiang Shiyuan felt a little sad, and said in a lower voice than before, Brother Jiu Chuang likes her. No. Jiu Junyi said affirmatively, if you really like him, you wouldn't have rarely come home for 3 years, let alone get divorced. Then Brother Jiu Chuang is now. Jiang Shiyuan didn't finish his words, but Jiu Junyi understood. I think Chuang wanted to remarry her because she was pregnant. Jiu Junyi thought for a moment and then said, because of what happened between me and his father, our Chuang never had the feeling of having a family since he was a child. Now that he has his own child, he definitely wants to give the child a complete family. Jiang Shiyuan said anxiously, it's only a matter of time before they remarry. A child doesn't necessarily need a biological mother to have a complete family. Jiu Junyi said, if our Chuang can't bear to part with the child, then you should raise the child first, and when you have your own child, send the child back to his biological mother. Jiang Shiyuan did not agree with Jiu Junyi's optimistic idea. Godmother, Brother Jiu Chuang doesn't like me. Jiang Shiyuan still pointed out the main problem. You are just too stupid. A man's love will not last long. Jiu Junyi said with deep feeling, you and our Chuang have a childhood sweetheart friendship. If you work harder, he will fall in love with you sooner or later. Then he added, you were too reserved before. If you could stay with him more often, maybe you would have been married a long time ago. Jiang Jiran said nothing when she heard this, and walked towards the parking lot taking Jiu Junyi's hand. After Jiang Jiran and Jiu Junyi left, Jiu Chuang told Jiang Jiran that Tang Rui was looking for a confinement nanny for her. Why are we looking for a confinement nanny when the baby isn't even born yet? Jiang Jiran asked. Jiu Chuang saw Jiang Jiran finished eating the apple, so he peeled a banana for her and said, find someone to take care of you. I'm afraid a babysitter doesn't have enough experience, but a confinement nanny knows a few things that pregnant women need to pay attention to. Jiang Jiran never knew that Jiu Chuang would be so thoughtful and take all these things into consideration. In fact, she is very conflicted now. Although she has clearly decided to let go of Jiu Chuang, she still accepts Jiu Chuang's arrangements with peace of mind. Jiu Chuang. Jiang Jiran shouted, don't be too nice to me. Jiu Chuang was happy and said with a smile, you are my wife, if I don't treat you well, who else can I treat well? Not anymore. Jiang Jiran blushed and said in a low voice. The voice was too soft and Jiu Chuang didn't hear it. Just when both of them were speechless, there was a knock on the door outside the ward. Jiu Chuang opened the door and it was Tang Rui. Tang Rui slightly turned sideways, revealing half of Lu Qianqian's body at the corner. Jiu Chuang frowned slightly, looked at Lu Qianqian with disdain, and said in a bad tone, why are you everywhere? He. Lu Qianqian laughed twice and said, I came to see my sister-in-law. No need. Jiu Chuang didn't even intend to let him in. My sister-in-law is pregnant. Let me see what's wrong with her. Lu Qianqian argued. Your sister-in-law said she doesn't need you to see it. Jiu Chuang refused mercilessly. Chapter 18 Gao Tingfeng's illegitimate son. Just as the two were arguing, Jiang Jiran came out from the ward. Mr. Lu, long time no see. Jiang Jiran was wearing a loose white shirt with overalls, her hair was tied in a high ponytail, and her snow-white face was bare of makeup, looking youthful. Jiang Jiran, like Li Mengyun, is a gentle type and speaks softly. But Lu Qianqian felt that Li Mengyun was pretentious, while Jiang Jiran was the one who was gentle and calm from the bottom of his heart. Sister-in-law. Lu Qianqian said embarrassedly, don't be so formal, just call me Qianqian. Get out. Jiu Chuang was standing beside him with a look of dissatisfaction on his face. Jiu Chuang couldn't stand seeing Lu Qianqian being so coquettish. Lu Qianqian really wanted to beat this kid up. I have something important to talk to you about. Lu Qianqian suddenly said seriously. Jiu Chuang turned to Jiang Jiran and said, I'm going to go out for a while. Let Tang Rui talk to you about the confinement nanny. Ask Tang Rui to have someone bring you what you want to eat. Okay. Jiang Jiran said and went back to the ward. Jiu Chuang and Lu Qianqian walked out of the hospital one after another. Lu Qianqian drove Jiu Chuang to the gate of a semi-old residential area, took out a cigarette and handed it to Jiu Chuang. Gao Tingfeng has an illegitimate son living in here. Lu Qianqian took a puff of his cigarette and said slowly. Jiu Chuang was not surprised at all. Gao Tingfeng's illegitimate son in his previous life, his adopted brother, also lived here. Later, he went to pick him up personally and bought him a house. Jiu Chuang didn't say anything. Lu Qianqian looked at him in confusion and asked, why are you so calm? He knew Jiu Chuang. With Jiu Chuang's temper, if he encountered such a thing, he would definitely be so angry that he would want to take a knife to kill Gao Tingfeng and his illegitimate son. Jiu Chuang was sleeping on the passenger seat, holding a cigarette between his right fingers, and occasionally reaching out of the window to flick the ashes. In his previous life, Gao Tingfeng had figured out his character and came up with a roundabout way. He accidentally met Gao Xingzi in Fudu, and Gao Tingfeng deliberately made him doubt Gao Xingzi's identity. Gao Tingfeng knew that Jiu Chuang would definitely send someone to investigate. When Lao He went to investigate, Gao Tingfeng asked someone to release the news that he had not contacted Gao Xingzi for so many years and that Gao Xingzi was living in poverty in order to arouse Jiu Chuang's sympathy. Gao Xingzi also appeared well-behaved and weak in front of Jiu Chuang, which made Jiu Chuang gradually relax his guard. From the moment he was reborn, everything was different. He wanted to see what reason Jiao Tingfeng would find to send Jiao Xingzi to him in this life without the chance encounter in his previous life. I see. Jiu Chuang leaned his head on his elbow and said calmly, "Let Lao He investigate their little tricks." Lu Qianchen responded with, "Okay." The information Lao He found in his previous life was fake. Who is actually supporting Jiao Tingfeng behind the scenes? Who else can hide this from Lao He's eyes in City C? Let's go. Jiu Chuang urged. He was in a hurry to go back and be with his wife. Lu Qianchen felt that Jiu Chuang had become a completely different person since the divorce, and was very clingy towards his ex-wife. "Lianyan, how long have you ignored me?" Lu Qianchen asked. "Isn't Tang Rui still here?" Jiu Chuang looked as if he didn't care. Lu Qianchen chuckled twice and said, "You are the boss. Whatever. I just want to take care of my wife and children now." Just as Lu Qianchen started the car and was about to leave, a small car hit him head-on. Lu Qianchen reacted quickly, turned the steering wheel sharply, and narrowly avoided the head-on attack. But the car still suffered a collision. Lu Qianchen and Jiu Chuang looked at each other and got out of the car calmly. The door on the opposite side of the car also opened, and a young man in his early 20s walked out. When he saw Jiu Chuang and Lu Qianchen, he bowed his head and apologized. Looking at Jiao Xingzi's Oscar-worthy acting skills, Jiu Chuang really wanted to give him a thumbs up. Lu Qianchen didn't know Jiao Xingzi, so he asked in a tough tone, "Did you bump into me on purpose?" Jiao Xingzi hurriedly explained, "Brother, you misunderstood me. I just learned to drive and I'm still a novice. I accidentally hit your car. I'm so sorry." Then he looked down at the place where Lu Qianchen was scratched, and said softly, "How much is it?" "I'll pay for it." Lu Qianchen's car is a fancy Ferrari, which most people can't afford. "Brother, I won't cheat you. I'll call the insurance company to get a quote." Lu Qianchen took out his cell phone and called the insurance company. Jiu Chuang was watching Jiao Xingzi with a guilty look on his face and found it very funny. This scene should have been designed by him and his dearest father. Jiao Xingzi and Jiu Chuang are 50% similar. The longer it drags on, the more clues Jiu Chuang will find, and then he will ask someone to investigate Jiao Xingzi. Jiu Chuang did exactly the same in his previous life. In this life, Jiu Chuang never intended to do as they wish. "Let's go first and let the insurance company handle it themselves." Jiu Chuang patted Lu Qianchen on the shoulder and winked at him to leave. Jiu Chuang wanted to know if Jiao Xingzi could still perform this play since he, the supporting actor, was no longer there. Jiao Xingzi stretched out his hand to block their way and said in a trembling voice, "Two brothers, you should wait until this is resolved before you leave." "Hey." Lu Qianchen reached into his pocket and took out a business card, handed it to Jiao Xingzi and said, "I am a victim and I am not afraid that you will run away, so why are you afraid that we will run away?" "No, brother." Jiao Xingzi tried to explain with a pale face, "Your car is too expensive. If you are not here, I am afraid that others will not be able to explain it clearly." "There's nothing to explain." Lu Qianchen pushed Jiao Xingzi away and continued walking with Jiu Chuang without looking back. "They will take care of it." Jiao Xingzi didn't relax until Jiu Chuang and Lu Qianchen walked away. The more Lu Qianchen looked at Jiao Xingzi, the more he felt that he looked like Jiu Chuang, and asked in a low voice, "Is that Jiao Tingfeng's illegitimate child?" "Yeah." Jiu Chuang responded briefly. "You know what, you two look quite alike." Lu Qianchen said with admiration. "They are quite similar." Jiu Chuang sneered and didn't respond. If not, he would not have asked someone to check Jiao Xingzi's news after meeting him once in his previous life. "You said that since we are here, he and Jiao Tingfeng must know that you are suspicious of them." Lu Qianchen said doubtfully, "If they knew, how could they dare to bump into you?" "I don't know either." Jiu Chuang said truthfully, "That's why I asked Lao He to check it out." Seeing Jiu Chuang's expressionless face, Lu Qianchen didn't know whether to comfort him. After all, it is hard for anyone to accept the fact that he has lived to this age only to find out that his father has an illegitimate child who is only a few years younger than him. Jiu Chuang has always been at the top of City C in recent years, and he hasn't been upset by his father's troubles for a long time. Now that his father has done this to him, he doesn't know how Jiu Chuang will make a scene when he returns home. Lu Qianchen didn't know that Jiu Chuang had no intention of making trouble at all. After all, some things need to be done slowly. Chapter 19, No Boyfriend, Ex-Husband. At the hospital, Jiang Jiran and Tang Rui agreed on the matter of the confinement nanny and let Tang Rui take charge of it. Jiang Jiran was really bored staying in the ward alone, so he asked the doctor. After getting the doctor's consent, he slowly walked to the hospital garden to get some fresh air. Jiang Jiran sat on a bench in the hospital garden, playing with his phone out of boredom. Oh, what a boring day. Jiran. A tentative male voice sounded in Jiang Jiran's ears. Jiang Jiran turned his head to look, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Mr. Zhu. Jiang Jiran called happily. Zhu Wenxi looked at Jiang Jiran's smiling face and felt much better. He smiled and asked, "Why are you here? What about you? Are you sick?" Jiang Jiran tactfully avoided Zhu Wenxi's question and didn't want to tell anyone about her pregnancy. Zhu Wenxi was the vice president of Jiang Jiran's previous company. He was young and promising, and was a well-known golden bachelor in their company. Jiang Jiran's previous company was engaged in game development. Jiang Jiran has been working in that company since graduation, and she particularly likes the company's atmosphere. After getting divorced and resigning to move to City A, the thing Jiang Jiran was most reluctant to give up, apart from his friends, was his job. Zhu Wenxi pointed to the left side of his stomach, smiled gently, and said, "I had a small operation. Are you okay now?" Jiang Jiran asked worriedly. "It's almost there." Seeing Jiang Jiran's concern, Zhu Wenxi's smile gradually widened, and even the corners of his eyes and eyebrows couldn't help but reveal a smile. "Why did you suddenly resign? Have you found a job?" Zhu Wenxi asked. Jiang Jiran's eyes darkened, and he said dejectedly, "Something happened at home, and I probably won't be able to go to work for a long time." Hearing Jiang Jiran's words, Zhu Wenxi said gently, "I opened a studio with a friend outside, helping others design cartoon illustrations, game characters, book covers, etc. The staff in the studio are often too busy, so we will look for people to do some part-time work. Are you willing to do it?" Jiang Jiran's eyes lit up, and he asked nervously, "Can I?" Zhu Wenxi smiled cheerfully, "You were the best game character designer in our company before, so why not?" Jiang Jiran smiled sheepishly, "Mr. Zhu, you are too good at talking. I'm telling the truth." Zhu Wenxi winked at Jiang Jiran mischievously, and Jiang Jiran smiled even more happily. Jiang Jiran was very happy that Zhu Wenxi could provide him with a part-time job opportunity. She and Jiu Chuang have already divorced, so it is impossible for her to spend Jiu Chuang's money on everything. Having money to earn provides an extra layer of security. Jiang Jiran agreed to Zhu Wenxi, gave Zhu Wenxi his new number, and returned to his ward happily. As soon as I opened the door of the ward, I saw Jiu Chuang sitting on the sofa, playing mobile games in a restless manner. Seeing her come in, Jiu Chuangjin immediately put down his phone and asked with a slightly trembling voice, "Where have you been?" Jiang Jiran, who was still immersed in finding a part-time job, did not hear the fear in Jiu Chuang's voice, and replied absent-mindedly, "Just taking a walk." Jiu Chuang reminded him worriedly, "You must tell me where you are going next time." Jiang Jiran pouted and said dissatisfiedly, "Why? Just listen to me." Jiu Chuang moved his lips and finally said only these three words. In fact, what Jiu Chuang wanted to say was that he was afraid that Jiang Jiran would leave again, and he would feel anxious and reluctant to let him go. But he still didn't say these words. How can he make Jiang Jiran believe that he really cares about her now? Jiang Jiran was so defensive against him that she always thought that he was being nice to her just for the sake of the baby in her belly. Jiang Jiran didn't know how to respond to Jiu Chuang's slightly ambiguous words. She pursed her lips and walked towards the bed. Jiu Chuang brought out the food that he had specially packed from Jingfilu and placed it on the table, then waved for Jiang Jiran to come over and eat. "Let's eat first." Jiang Jiran turned around and walked back to the sofa and sat down. "Man is iron and rice is steel, if you don't eat, you will be hungry." And Jiang Jiran has a baby in her belly, so she stopped being pretentious and took the bowl and chopsticks to eat. Jingfilu is the largest restaurant in City C, and their chef is also famous in City C. Jiang Jiran was very satisfied with the meal. As expected, Jingfilu's dishes are as good as their reputation. But Jiu Chuang, this prodigal son, even went to Jingfilu to take away his lunch. After lunch, the nurse came over to give Jiang Jiran an injection to preserve the pregnancy, and reminded Jiang Jiran of some precautions before leaving. Jiang Jiran didn't notice it while eating, and only now did he see several WeChat messages on his phone. When Jiang Jiran clicked on it, he saw Zhu Wence's message. "Have you got a meal yet? Would you like me to take you to the hospital cafeteria for dinner? The food there is pretty good." Maybe because he waited for a long time and so that Jiang Jiran didn't reply, Chuang sent another. Jiang Jiran quickly replied, "I have eaten. Someone brought me food. Have you eaten?" Zhu Wence replied quickly. "Not yet. It's so nice that someone even brings you food. Is he your boyfriend?" After hearing Zhu Wence's words, Jiang Jiran didn't know how to respond. No one in the company knew that she was married before. It was not that she didn't want to say it, but she felt there was nothing to say. Although she and Chuang are husband and wife, they only see each other a few times a year. Everyone still thought she was single. Jiang Jiran typed on the phone for a long time before sending out a sentence, "No boyfriend, but ex-husband." She didn't want to hide it from Zhu Wence, and she felt there was nothing to hide. She would work under Zhu Wence in the future, so she had to let him know her situation. Jiang Jiran added, "I am pregnant and I am getting a pregnancy-preserving injection in the hospital. I don't know if Zhu Wence didn't see it, because I didn't see any reply from him until Jiang Jiran fell asleep." Chuang was sitting on the sofa playing games, and from time to time he would look at Jiang Jiran's potion to see if it had been used up. When Chuang was fighting enthusiastically in the game, his cell phone rang. He saw that it wasn't his phone ringing, but the phone next to Jiang Jiran's pillow. Chuang didn't have the habit of peeking at other people's phones. He thought, this was not someone else but his wife, so why couldn't he look at her phone? As soon as this thought came to his mind, he reached out for Jiang Jiran's cell phone. The caller ID on the cell phone showed, Vice President Zhu Wence. Just as Chuang was about to answer the call, the other party hung up. Chuang thought it was probably a work-related matter, so he didn't take it seriously and continued to indulge in games. This kind of peaceful and quiet life was something Chuang had never imagined before. "It turns out that just staying with my wife and doing nothing can bring me so much satisfaction." Chuang now understands this. In the future, when Jiang Jiran has a child, he will be able to live a leisurely life with his wife and children. Thinking of this, Chuang's heart was filled with beautiful visions of the future. Chapter 20, In what capacity does she mind? Jiang Jiran didn't know how long he slept before he woke up in a daze. It was already dark outside. Jiang Jiran looked at his right hand, which was covered with gores from the injection. Jiang Jiran slept so deeply that he didn't even know when the doctor would come to take out the injection. When his eyes had completely adjusted to the darkness, Jiang Jiran saw Chuang lying on the sofa. Jiang Jiran got out of bed quietly and walked to Chuang's side, staring at his sleeping face, feeling mixed emotions for a moment. A lot of things have happened since the divorce, and Chuang's transformation left her confused. Chuang felt someone was watching him in his sleep. He opened his eyes with great effort and met a pair of dark and shiny eyes. The street light outside the window just happened to shine on Jiang Jiran, making her body seem to be covered with a thin veil under the light. Chuang was dazzled by the beauty. He raised his right hand slightly and couldn't help but touch Jiang Jiran's face. "Are you awake?" The side of his face that was touched by Chuang felt particularly hot, and Jiang Jiran turned his head away awkwardly. The soft touch on his hand was still there. Chuang reluctantly put down his hand, sat up and asked, "Are you hungry? I'll take you out to eat." "Yeah." Jiang Jiran felt a little dizzy when she stood up, and Chuang quickly helped her. "What's wrong?" Jiang Jiran looked at the concern in Chuang's eyes and shook his head to indicate that he was fine. Chuang naturally took Jiang Jiran's hand and walked out of the ward. Jiang Jiran was not used to such intimacy with Chuang. He gently shook off Chuang's hand and quickly walked in front of Chuang. Chuang looked at his hand being shaken away and comforted himself that there was still a long way to go. The two walked slowly to the snack street behind the hospital. It was around 8 o'clock in the evening and the snack street was very lively. This was a food street that everyone in City C knew about. Jiang Jiran and Zhu often came here to eat. Pregnant Jiang Jiran had a particularly good appetite. She hadn't enjoyed eating so much in a long time. The taste of City A is different from that of City C. Apart from Jiu Chuang, the thing Jiang Jiran missed most during his time in City A was probably the food. Brother Chuang. Jiang Jiran was eating happily when she suddenly heard a familiar voice. She knew it was Li Mengyun without even looking. This guy is really haunting. Jiu Chuang didn't feel Jiang Jiran's hostility towards Li Mengyun at all. He waved his hand and asked Li Mengyun to sit opposite Jiang Jiran and asked, "Are you alone?" Li Mengyun looked at Jiu Chuang's hand that passed tissues to Jiang Jiran from time to time, and the smile on her face was a little hard to hold. She forced a smile and said, "Well, I came out for a walk." Li Mengyun also lives in Jinheyuan, not far from here, so Jiu Chuang didn't think much about it. Jiang Jiran thought of Li Mengyun's appearance in City A and the ambiguous words she said in the supermarket, and asked tentatively, "Ms. Li, why did you go to City A some time ago?" Before Li Mengyun opened her mouth, Jiu Chuangxian became nervous. Jiu Chuang did not tell Jiang Jiran about the night he went to rescue Li Mengyun because he was afraid that she would think too much. However, he did not expect that Jiang Jiran actually knew that Li Mengyun was in City A. "I was on a business trip." Li Mengyun smiled shyly. "I was forced to drink that night, and it was all thanks to Brother Chuang who came to help me. He was afraid that I would be scared and stayed with me all night." When Li Mengyun said this, Jiu Chuang kept winking at her, but Li Mengyun didn't understand, and her words became more and more ambiguous. "Mengyun is my sister. She was bullied and I went to help her get justice." Jiu Chuang explained quickly. Jiang Jiran didn't say anything, and she didn't know what to say. Did she mind? In what capacity did she mind? When she was Jiu Chuang's wife, she couldn't control Jiu Chuang, let alone now that she is his ex-wife. Li Mengyun didn't expect Jiu Chuang to explain to Jiang Jiran. Since Jiu Chuang's divorce, Jiang Jiran found that he had changed a lot. Jiu Chuang and Jiang Jiran have been married for 3 years. Others may not know this, but Li Mengyun knows it. Jiu Chuang simply treated Jiang Jiran as a transparent person. No matter how late he came home after playing outside, or even if he didn't come home for several days, he would never give Jiang Jiran an explanation. Does Jiang Jiran's child have such a great influence on Jiu Chuang? Yes, thank you very much, Brother Chuang. Li Mengyun pretended to say casually, "Brother Chuang has taken good care of me over the years. He always helps me solve any problems as soon as possible." Jiu Chuang is a fool when it comes to emotions. He has had so many relationships, big and small, and it was always the other women who went along with him, but he never went along with others. He doesn't care about what those girls think. When Jiu Chuang heard what Li Mengyun said, he didn't say much. He felt that he and Li Mengyun were just siblings, and it was normal for a brother to help his sister, and there was nothing to explain. Jiang Jiran couldn't stand Li Mengyun's boasting. This reminded Jiang Jiran of how Jiu Chuang often left him behind because of Li Mengyun. Jiang Jiran put down his chopsticks and said unhappily, "I'm not eating anymore. Get up and prepare to leave." Jiu Chuang pulled Jiang Jiran and coaxed him softly, "We haven't finished eating yet, do you want to pack it up?" "No." Jiang Jiran pushed Jiu Chuang away. She really disliked Jiu Chuang now and had lost her appetite due to being stimulated by Li Mengyun. After paying the bill, Jiu Chuang said hello to Li Mengyun and said, "We are leaving now. Take your time shopping." As he watched Jiang Jiran and Jiu Chuang walking away, the smile on Li Mengyun's lips gradually disappeared. Jiu Chuang had this attitude when Jiang Jiran just got pregnant. If Jiang Jiran's child was born, they would definitely remarry. This is what Li Mengyun doesn't want to see. What method can be used to dissuade Jiu Chuang from remarrying Jiang Jiran? Jiang Jiran turned around and saw Li Mengyun still standing there looking in the direction they left, wondering what he was thinking. Based on woman's intuition, Jiang Jiran was sure that Li Mengyun liked Jiu Chuang. She just couldn't understand Jiu Chuang's attitude. Jiang Jiran has never been in a relationship. The only person she has ever had a crush on is Jiu Chuang. Marrying Jiu Chuang fulfilled her secret love dream. Jiang Jiran didn't know whether he was lucky or unlucky. In this life, all the hardships are brought by the person you love the most. Jiu Chuang. Jiang Jiran stopped and stared at Jiu Chuang. Jiu Chuang looked at her in confusion, not understanding why Jiang Jiran suddenly called him so seriously. "If you didn't marry me, would you marry Li Mengyun?" Jiang Jiran hesitated for a long time, but finally asked in a low voice. Chuang didn't understand what Jiang Jiran was thinking about all day. In his opinion, there is no need to think about such hypothetical questions. There is no need to answer. No. In order to reassure Jiang Jiran, Chuang still gave Jiang Jiran an answer. Chuang didn't say more. He didn't want them to always talk about such meaningless topics when they were together. Chapter 21: How to Chase a Woman. Jiang Jiran heard Chuang's perfunctory answer and did not ask any more questions. The hospital is very close to the snack street. After sending Jiang Jiran back to the ward, Chuang went to Lianyan. At around 10 o'clock in the evening, the lights were on, the crowds were surging, and the noise was everywhere. Lu Qianqian, when Jia and others were in the VIP box of the Lianyan presidential suite. Chuang sat down in the empty seat in front of the mahjong table, lit the cigarette handed to him by the waiter behind him, and took a deep puff. Recently, when staying with Jiang Jiran, Chuang didn't dare to smoke in front of her. I have to resist the urge to smoke every time. I must have a good time tonight. Where have you been recently? When Jia didn't know about Chuang and Jiang Jiran, and said to Chuang while playing mahjong. Chuang put out the burned cigarette in the ashtray, rubbed the cards in his hand with his fingers, and asked, "How to chase a woman?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was in an uproar. When Jia was shocked. Is this a question you would ask? Spring has passed, and Master Jiu is just beginning to feel nostalgic for love. Someone in the crowd made a joke. Lu Qianqian said calmly, "This kind of question should be answered by a love expert like us." Cut. Someone made a disdainful sound. Lu Qianqian didn't care. Don't even ask such a simple question. Just give gifts. There is nothing that money can't solve. Women like romance. As long as the money is in place and the romance is going on, there is no woman that can't be dealt with. Chuang recalled the gifts he had given to Jiang Jiran in the past 3 years and frowned. It seemed that the most he had ever given away was 990 roses. This is probably quite romantic. Did Jiang Jiran like it? He couldn't even remember what Jiang Jiran's expression was when he received the flowers. What else? Chuang continued to ask when he didn't get any practical solutions. Xiao Lingjing burst out laughing. If he dares to say it, you dare to listen. Lu Qianqian pushed the mahjong and said, "Win." He took their lost money and smiled from ear to ear. I'm the best at chasing women here, what do you know? After listening to them talking for so long, and still not getting to the point, Chuang gradually lost his patience and asked, "Can you say something useful?" Xiao Lingjing reached out and touched the cards. To chase a woman, you must first understand her. Generally, if a woman says no, then most of the time she wants it. A strong woman is afraid of a clinging man. Follow her wherever she goes. Use all kinds of tricks to coax her, and there is nothing you can't get. Chuang still only understood half of what was said, but at least he had some idea. Xiao Moli, who had been silent the whole time, glanced at them calmly. Lu Qianqian touched his arm and asked, "Is the air conditioner too cold?" Everyone. It's not the air conditioner that's cold, it's your brother who's cold. You might as well ask Baidu than to ask them. Xiao Moli did not play mahjong with them. Instead, he sat behind Chuang and watched him draw one bad card after another. There seems to be nothing wrong with what he said. The Xiao family is a prominent family in Kyoto and the leader of the 4 major families in Kyoto. They have a profound influence in the entire country Z. The Xiao family started out in the military and later expanded into the business world. The Xiao family's influence is complex and intertwined, and Xiao Moli is the current heir to the Xiao family's business empire. Xiao Moli is different from those native people of City C. They are nouveau riche, but Xiao Moli is a real young master of a wealthy family. Even a young master from a noble family in Kyoto like Wen Jie is no match for the Xiao family. If the Xiao family stamps their feet, both the political and business circles of country Z will tremble. When he had a car accident in his previous life, Xiao Moli also had an accident. Later, when he learned that he was dead, Xiao Moli's anger almost turned City C upside down. In order to avoid being frozen by the sudden cold air, Xiao Lingjing changed the subject and said, "I always thought that our Chuang was a man who walked through a sea of flowers without getting a single leaf on him. Who knew that you would also be troubled by chasing women?" That's right. When Jia asked the waiter to turn up the temperature of the air conditioner, his brother was getting colder and colder. Didn't you just get divorced? Why are you attracted to other women so soon? Lu Qianqian was the only one who knew the inside story. This guy is such a jerk. He just divorced his wife and wants to remarry her now. This surprised them again. In their minds, Jiu Chuang doesn't care about his wife. They often forget that Jiu Chuang is a married man. How could he divorce and remarry? What kind of a trick is this? Jiu Chuang didn't care what they were thinking. He picked up his phone to check the time, pushed the mahjong forward, and said, "I have something to do, so I'll have to leave first. You guys play." As soon as Jiu Chuang left, Xiao Lingjing also took out his phone to check the time. That guy left before 12 o'clock. Is this something he could do? In the past, when everyone went out to play, Jiu Chuang was always the last one to leave. I often travel and stay wherever I go. Is there access control now? When Jie patted Lu Qianqian on the shoulder and asked, "What's wrong with him lately?" "My sister-in-law is pregnant." Lu Qianqian leaned back in his chair like a lord. "I guess Brother Chuang wants to remarry because his sister-in-law is pregnant. After all, it's his own child." These words were heard by Li Mengyun, who had just pushed the door open. Li Mengyun saw Jiu Chuang also in their eating, drinking and having fun group and rushed over immediately. She also wanted to create some sparks with Jiu Chuang while Jiang Jiran was not around. Who knew she would leave as soon as she arrived at Jiu Chuang? Lu Qianqian is Jiu Chuang's brother and they often eat, drink, defecate and urinate together. Since Lu Qianqian said so, maybe Jiu Chuang really wants to remarry because of the child. It's okay as long as you don't have feelings for Jiang Jiran. "Mengyun, why are you here just now?" The female companion who came with Xiao Lingjing saw Li Mengyun and stretched out her hand to call her over. "Okay." Li Mengyun replied with a smile. Li Mengyun first walked to Xiao Moli's table and greeted his brothers, Brother Xiao, Brother Qiao, Brother Jie, Brother Qianqian. Li Mengyun did not dare to favor one over the other and called them over one by one. Xiao Moli would not respond, and the other three nodded to Li Mengyun. Lu Qianqian didn't like Li Mengyun very much, but he wouldn't embarrass her in such a public occasion. After saying hello, Li Mengyun walked over to sit next to Xiao Lingjing's female companion and asked casually, "Where's my brother?" He said he had something to do and left first. Xiao Lingjing's female companion was Qin Shuahui, the eldest daughter of the Qin family in City C. Originally, someone of Qin Shuahui's status would look down on Li Mengyun. But Qin Shuahui is not the kind of girl who would look down on others. She can get along with everyone. "What have you been busy with recently? I haven't seen you for a long time." Qin Shuahui saw that Li Mengyun looked absent-minded and handed her a bottle of water. Li Mengyun was a little absent-minded, still thinking about Jiu Chuang and Jiang Jiran. "No, I'm busy with work." Li Mengyun leaned on the sofa and opened his mobile phone with his right hand. In the past, she always found various ways to ask Jiu Chuang out. When she called Jiu Chuang in City A, he would come as soon as possible. I don't know if this trick still works now. Chapter 22. Have you let it go? Li Mengyun opened Jiu Chuang's WeChat. "Brother, where are you?" After hesitating for a long time, Li Mengyun only uttered this sentence. Lu Qianqian and the others were all here, so Li Mengyun didn't dare to be too presumptuous. Jiu Chuang couldn't see through his little thoughts, and wondered if Lu Qianqian could see through them. And there is Xiao Moli. Li Mengyun was really afraid of him. After waiting for a whole night, Li Mengyun still didn't get any reply from Jiu Chuang, so she had to give up. Jiu Chuang saw the WeChat message, but was too busy to respond to her. Jiang Jiran was still awake when Jiu Chuang returned to the ward. Jiu Chuang. Jiang Jiran liked to call Jiu Chuang by his name every time he spoke to him. "I don't want to be hospitalized anymore. I asked the doctor, and he said that it's okay if I really don't want to be hospitalized. I can just come and get the pregnancy-preserving injection every day and stay in bed to rest." Jiu Chuang was lying on the sofa, looking at his phone, and waved his hand. "No, you've only been here for 1 day." Jiang Jiran was unhappy. "It's too boring here. I'll accompany you." Jiu Chuang still remembered what the doctor said about Jiang Jiran's fetal position being unstable and showing signs of congenital miscarriage. "I didn't keep my child in my previous life, so I must be careful in this life." Jiu Chuang's attitude was too tough. Jiang Jiran knew that he would not give in easily, so he simply lay down and went to sleep. When I got up in the morning, Chuang had already bought breakfast. Chuang told Jiang Jiran, I'm going to Lianyan to take care of some things today. If you're bored, you can ask Mengyun or your friends to keep you company. Jiang Jiran. Jiang Jiran didn't know how Chuang knew that she and Li Mengyun had a good relationship. This man was really blind. After Jiang Jiran finished breakfast, Chuang went to Lianyan. Jiang Jiran, who had nothing to do, was thinking about what to do to pass the time when his WeChat rang. Ever since Jiang Jiran told Zhu Wenxi that she was pregnant, she hasn't received a reply from him. However, he saw his number in the missed calls list, but Jiang Jiran did not call back. Good morning, have you had breakfast? Want to go out for a walk? Zhu Wenxi did not mention Jiang Jiran's pregnancy. Jiang Jiran thought it would be a good idea to go out and meet Zhu Wenxi, and ask him if his part-time job was still possible. Jiang Jiran only replied with okay. When Jiang Jiran walked to the garden, Zhu Wenxi had already arrived. Today, Zhu Wenxi was no longer wearing a hospital gown. Instead, he was wearing a well-tailored suit that made him look so elegant that Jiang Jiran couldn't help but think of a poem. The man on the street is as beautiful as jade, and the young man is unparalleled in the world. Zhu Wenxi stood beside the flowers, with the corners of his eyes slightly raised and the corners of his lips curled up, forming a beautiful arc, and there was a soft light in his obsidian eyes. This is a man completely different from Chuang. Jiang Jiran walked up to Zhu Wenxi and smiled brightly, Mr. Zhu. Zhu Wenxi looked at the girl in front of him. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, with her long black hair simply tied up and draped over her shoulders. Her extremely beautiful big watery eyes were shining. It was so beautiful that it dazzled Zhu Wenxi's eyes. Jiang Jiran waved his hand in front of Zhu Wenxi's eyes. Boss Zhu, what are you thinking about so intently? Miss you. Zhu Wenxi didn't dare to say this. I've secured a few orders for you. Zhu Wenxi walked side by side with Jiang Jiran on the path in the hospital garden. He picked a leaf and played with it in his hand. Give me your email address and I'll send you the specific requirements and deadline. Jiang Jiran was so happy that he almost jumped up. Thank you so much. Jiang Jiran's tone was no longer as polite as before. Are you being discharged from the hospital today? Yes. Seeing Jiang Jiran's unconcealed happiness, Zhu Wenxi's mood also inexplicably became better. Jiang Jiran's voice was very pleasant, just like a willow branch falling into water in early spring, creating ripples in the pond. If you don't have any plans for lunch, I'll treat you to a meal. How could Zhu Wenxi refuse Jiang Jiran's invitation? He smiled and nodded in agreement. The two walked in the garden and talked about work. In terms of design, many of Zhu Wenxi's ideas coincided with Jiang Jiran's. Jiang Jiran hasn't felt so relaxed in a long time. She has always been very cautious around Chuang, fearing that anything she said would make him unhappy. She and Chuang don't have that much in common. Chuang didn't understand what she wanted to talk about, and she didn't like what Chuang said. Sometimes I think that love is so wonderful. There is no need for consistent values, just a little feeling can make people unable to let go. At noon, the two had lunch in the hospital cafeteria. Zhu Wenxi was not exaggerating, the food in the hospital cafeteria was really delicious. Originally, it was agreed that Jiang Jiran would pay for the meal, but Zhu Wenxi still paid when Jiang Jiran wasn't paying attention. This was the first time Jiang Jiran had such close contact with Zhu Wenxi. Previously in the company, Zhu Wenxi was the high-ranking vice president, and Jiang Jiran was just an unknown clerk. At that time, Jiang Jiran's heart was entirely on Chuang. She couldn't see any other men and didn't know Zhu Wenxi. During the time they spent together, I discovered that Zhu Wenxi had a really good temper. He always kept a safe distance from Jiang Jiran, but was able to take good care of her. During the meal, Zhu Wenxi couldn't help but ask, I haven't heard from my colleagues about your marriage. When did you get married? It's so secretive. I've been married for 3 years. Jiang Jiran said truthfully, my relationship with my ex-husband wasn't very good, so I didn't tell anyone. Although Zhu Wenxi knew that gossiping about other people's private lives was not good, he still couldn't help wanting to get to know Jiang Jiran. Then why are you divorced and pregnant? A marriage without love will eventually come to an end. Jiang Jiran couldn't help but reveal his sadness. Zhu Wenxi was a person who was good at observing other people's emotions. He didn't need Jiang Jiran to explain in detail. Just by looking at his expression, Zhu Wenxi knew that this marriage must be Jiang Jiran's unrequited love. Zhu Wenxi couldn't understand why. How could anyone not like such a beautiful girl like Jiang Jiran? Then why get married if there is no love? Zhu Wenxi took a sip of water to moisten his dry throat. Jiang Jiran was even sadder. This is a very long story. Zhu Wenxi did not ask any further questions, but just said, "Have you let it go now? Have you let it go?" Jiang Jiran didn't know. She felt that she had let it go, but every time she faced Chuang, her heart was still drawn to him. Even though she hasn't let it go, she won't think of renewing her relationship with Chuang anymore. "I don't know." Jiang Jiran gave an honest answer. Zhu Wenxi didn't know how to comfort the girl in front of him who had her head lowered and her hands stroking her belly. Jiang Jiran doesn't look like a pregnant mother at all. She is still like a girl, full of energy, pure and beautiful. Jiang Jiran himself quickly came out of his sad mood. "Let's take it one step at a time. Let's drink today and not worry about tomorrow." Chapter 23. Where have you been? After chatting with Zhu Wenxi for the whole morning, Jiang Jiran felt much more relaxed. She didn't know that Chuang had been waiting for her in the ward for more than an hour and she didn't come back. He called her but her phone was always turned off. Chuang was so anxious that he almost blew up the hospital. When Jiang Jiran returned to the ward, he saw Chuang's face that looked as if a storm was about to come. Jiang Jiran's heart skipped a beat. "What's wrong with you?" The tall and straight man leaned against the white wall of the hospital, holding a cigarette between his slender fingers, the flame of the cigarette flickering. "Where have you been?" Chuang's expression was cold, with a hint of anger surging in the depths of his black eyes. Jiang Jiran was nervous, looking innocent and helpless. I'm just going to take a walk in the garden." Chuang strode towards Jiang Jiran, pushed her against the wall, kissed her hard, and his hands wandered restlessly all over her body. Jiang Jiran pushed hard several times but failed to push Chuang away. Chuang gradually lost control. He hadn't been so close to Jiang Jiran for a long time since his last life. Par. Jiang Jiran used all his strength in this slap. Chuang. "You bastard." There was a tremor in Jiang Jiran's voice. She was really angry. Jiang Jiran squatted down weakly, her face full of tears. She had never thought that Chuang would treat her like this. Seeing Jiang Jiran squatting on the ground crying, the anger on Chuang's face dissipated, the ferocious look faded, and gradually an increasingly obvious sense of uneasiness emerged. Chuang didn't know what happened to him just now. He was extremely panicked when he couldn't find Jiang Jiran. Jiang Jiran's appearance could not ease his fear. Only when he hugged Jiang Jiran and kissed her could Chuang's uneasy heart be relieved. He was obsessed with the beauty of Jiang Jiran's lips, and before he knew it, he had ended up in this situation. Chuang helped Jiang Jiran up, gently wiped away the tears from her eyes, and said in a slightly unnatural voice, "I'm sorry." Jiang Jiran pushed Chuang away, his eyes filled with a hint of sadness. Roll. Chuang felt as if his heart was being grabbed by something, and his chest ached dully. Get lost. Seeing Chuang standing still, Jiang Jiran was about to collapse. Chuang reached out and hugged Jiang Jiran, and he did not let go even though Jiang Jiran struggled in his arms. He knew that if he left today, it would be the end for him and Jiang Jiran. Jiang Jiran made a fuss for a long time, and finally stopped due to exhaustion. Chuang was afraid of hurting the baby in her belly, so he didn't dare to hug Jiang Jiran too hard. Instead, Jiang Jiran scratched his arms with many marks. Chuang carried Jiang Jiran to the bed and covered her with a blanket. "I didn't mean it." Chuang squatted beside the bed and held Jiang Jiran's hand. "I looked for you everywhere, but I didn't see you. I called you but your phone was turned off. I was afraid you left again." This was the first time Chuang expressed his feelings to Jiang Jiran. It was also the first time that Chuang told Jiang Jiran that he was afraid that Jiang Jiran would leave. At this moment, Jiang Jiran didn't notice what Chuang said, nor did he see the worried and frightened eyes of Chuang. For the first time in his life, Chuang felt fear. He didn't know that this emotion would appear countless times in his long journey to pursue his wife. Jiang Jiran turned his back to Chuang and curled up in the quilt. Suppressed cries came out from under the quilt. Chuang really wanted to slap himself again. I really have lived 2 lives in vain. I actually scared my wife like this. Smoking is not allowed in the hospital, and Chuang was feeling really annoyed, so he waited until Jiang Jiran fell asleep and then went to the door with his cell phone to make a call. Chuang was not a person who liked to talk, but what happened today was beyond his original understanding and he didn't know how to deal with it. I looked through my address book several times but couldn't find the right person. In the end, there was no other choice but to call Xiaomoli. Brother. Chuang's voice was muffled. Explain. Chuang was irritated by Xiaomoli's indifference. Could it be that his elder brother couldn't hear his sadness? I'm in a bad mood. Chuang tried his best to hint to Xiaomoli. There is no way to communicate. Both of them fell silent. When Chuang was thinking about how to start the conversation, he found that the phone was hung up. The phone was hung up? Xiaomoli actually hung up the phone on him? This is like rubbing pepper into the wounds of grief. Xiaomoli had no time to care about Chuang's sadness. He was tricked. Last night, Xiaomoli returned to the hotel and saw a naked woman lying on the bed. It was obvious that the woman had been drugged. The woman's tiny cries echoed in the dim room. When the woman saw Xiaomoli standing in front of the bed, it was like she had grabbed a life-saving straw. The woman reached out and grabbed Xiaomoli's hand, resisting her desire and saying, "Please, save me." Xiaomoli had seen many beauties, but he had never seen one as charming and flamboyant as this one. That woman was born with a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes, and when filled with lust, they could almost drown people. Even someone with strong self-control like Xiaomoli felt his heart tremble. Coupled with the teardrop mole at the corner of the woman's eye, she looks even more seductive and alluring. The effect of the drug became stronger and stronger, eating away the woman's remaining sanity. It's hot. It's so hot. The woman staggered to her knees, hugged Xiaomoli's thin waist, and snuggled into his arms like a kitten. His hands were still restlessly pulling at Xiaomoli's shirt. Xiaomoli swallowed, grabbed the woman's hand, and lowered his head to kiss her. If a woman comes to him, don't blame him for being rude. Regardless of whether this is a conspiracy or not, it's rare to come across something that suits his taste, so he might as well do it first. Xiaomoli pressed down without hesitation. The bed was in disarray and clothes were scattered on the floor. Xiaomoli had never indulged himself like this before. Xiaomoli hesitated for a moment, but in the end, desire overcame reason. The woman's painful voice sounded in Xiaomoli's ears, and he couldn't help but slow down his pace. A charming room. When Suyang woke up, Xiaomoli had already left. The bright red on the white sheets stung her eyes. Tears flowed silently. Last night, she was drugged by her own sister, who wanted to send her to Wang Dahong, the president of Wang Group. He was an old man in his 40s. Many entrepreneurs in City C know that Wang Dahong is an absolute pervert. If you want to cooperate with him, giving him beautiful women is the best way to please him. But Wang Dahong has high standards and he doesn't like all beauties. He has been coveting the youngest daughter of the Su family for a long time. Finally, he encountered the situation where the Su family's capital chain was broken and they urgently needed an opportunity to cooperate with him. In order to get on board Wang Dahong's boat, Su Yang's biological sister Su Qian sold her without hesitation. Last night, Su Yang used her last bit of strength to escape from the tiger's den, but unexpectedly, she encountered a wolf whose identity and appearance she didn't even know. Chapter 24. I was sold. Jiang Jiran had just woken up when he received Su Yang's call. The sound of Su Yang crying made Jiang Jiran's heart tighten. Jiang Jiran had known Su Yang for so many years, but he had never seen her cry. "Where are you?" Jiang Jiran asked worriedly. "In my apartment." "Wait for me, I'll be there soon," Jiang Jiran said as he got out of bed and put on his shoes. Seeing Jiang Jiran was about to leave, Chuang asked cautiously, "Where are you going?" Jiang Jiran didn't care about being angry with him now. He took his hand and pulled him out. "I have to go to my friend's house for something urgent. Please drive me there quickly." Feeling the warmth from Jiang Jiran's fingertips, Chuang's mouth corners slightly raised. "Wife, have you forgiven me?" Jiang Jiran's mind was completely focused on Su Yang. Having been Su Yang's best friend for so many years, she had never heard Su Yang's voice so sad. On their way to Su Yang's house, Jiang Jiran urged Jiu Chuang to drive faster, and Jiu Chuang managed to shorten the 20-minute journey by half. Arriving at the foot of Su Yang's apartment, Jiang Jiran unbuckled his seatbelt and tried to push the door and get out. "You are still pregnant, don't worry," Jiu Chuang reminded. "Okay." Even though he was anxious, Jiang Jiran had to consider the fragile baby in his belly. "Jiang Jiran has the password to Su Yang's house. As soon as I opened the door, I heard the sound of water coming from the bathroom." After waiting for a long time, Su Yang finally finished washing and walked out of the bathroom. Su Yang was wearing a loose sleeveless nightgown, and her neck and hands were covered with purple marks. As someone who had experienced it, Jiang Jiran knew very well what it was and immediately stood up from the sofa excitedly. "Chirp, what's wrong with you?" Su Yang walked up to Jiang Jiran and hugged him, her body still shaking slightly. "Of course, Su Yi sold me out." Su Yang let go of Jiang Jiran and sat down on the sofa. Jiang Jiran poured Su Yang a glass of water. Su Yang took a sip and her mood calmed down a little. "Su Yi asked me to go to room 604 of Royal Capital to deliver stomach medicine to my dad last night. When I went in, Su Yi was the only one there." Su Yang took another sip of water. Her voice was a little hoarse when she woke up this morning. Su Yang put down the water cup and continued to recall. "Su Yi handed me a glass of water and asked me to wait, saying that my father had not returned from a social event yet. After drinking the water, I felt more and more dizzy. I told Su Yi that I left the medicine here and I had to go back first. It was not Su Yi who responded to me, but a man's voice. That man is Wang Dehong. Suze has no funds left due to failed investments. We probably won't be able to pay this month's salary. Only by cooperating with Wang Dehong and injecting new funds can Suze be revived." Su Yang suddenly started to dry heave. What happened last night was really terrible. Jiang Jiran patted Su Yang's back with heartache, and it took Su Yang a long time to recover. "Wang Dehong has had his eyes on me for a long time, but I have rejected him many times. I never thought they would use such despicable means to force me to submit. Su Qian is my biological sister, how could she have the heart to do this to her?" Su Yang covered her eyes with her hands, but tears flowed out from between her fingers. Jiang Jiran's tears also fell. Betrayal from family members is the cruelest thing. I used up my last bit of strength to push Wang Dehong down, and in panic I reached for the ashtray and threw it at him. I don't know if I hit him, but before he could come to his senses, I quickly ran out the door. I didn't dare take the elevator or go downstairs, for fear that Su Yi would be waiting downstairs. I could only run to the stairs. The effect of the drug made me feel more and more dizzy. I didn't know which floor I ran to. I saw a room that was open, so I quickly hid in it. I wanted to use the phone in my room to call Haidong and ask him to come and save me, but before I could make the call, I lost consciousness. I don't remember anything that happened afterwards. When I woke up this morning, there was no one in the room. There was blood on the bed sheets, and I didn't feel well." Su Yang bit her lips tightly, and her tears flowed even more violently. It was a nightmare night. Jiang Jiran slapped the table, his lungs almost exploding with anger. "Come on, I'll go home with you to find Su Qian." Jiang Jiran helped Su Yang to the bedroom to change clothes. When they went downstairs, they found Jiu Chuang still waiting downstairs. Jiang Jiran thought that he would definitely have a big fight with Su Qian when he returned to the Su family, so he would feel at ease with more helpers guarding outside. "Jiu Chuang, take us to Su Yang's house." Jiang Jiran took Su Yang's hand and got into the car without any hesitation. Seeing that Jiang Jiran and Su Yang both looked unhappy, Jiu Chuang didn't ask any more questions. He let Jiang Jiran show their way and was willing to be their driver to take them to Su's house. Jiang Jiran asked Jiu Chuang to wait at the gate of the community while she and Su Yang went home to get some things. Su Yang opened the door and found Su Qian, Su Hai and Yu Chunlan were all at home. Seeing Su Yang wearing long-sleeved shirt, long pants and a silk scarf around her neck, Su Qian smiled ambiguously. Su Yang was wrapped so tightly in the June weather, and it was obvious that the battle last night was very intense. "Our family's great hero is back." The excitement in Su Qian's tone was almost overflowing. Jiang Jiran's face turned pale, and he clenched his fists, trying hard to suppress his anger. Su Yang took 2 steps at a time and walked up to Su Qian and slapped her hard. The 3 members of the Su family were all stunned, and Yu Chunlan was the first to come to his senses. Bang! No one expected that Yu Chunlan would actually slap Su Yang. You're crazy. You even dare to hit your sister. Jiang Jiran rushed over and protected Su Yang behind him, and said angrily, Auntie, you hit Chuchu without knowing right or wrong. Do you know what your eldest daughter did? I. Looking at Yu Chuanlan's evasive eyes, Jiang Jiran and Su Yang still didn't understand something. The sadness in Su Yang's eyes hurt Su Hai and Yu Chunlan. Su Hai called out softly, Yang Yang. You two discussed what happened last night, right? Su Yang had never felt so painful before. Even the dangerous situation like last night, she didn't think it could destroy her. However, facing the family in front of her, her heart felt like it was torn apart. I know you have liked your sister since you were little. She is more obedient than me, more outstanding than me, has better grades than me, and is better at acting like a spoiled child than me. Just because I'm not the son you've been thinking about, you've been cold to me since I was a child. I've never had anything my sister has. Even when you go traveling, you only take my sister with you, leaving me alone at home with the nanny. Now, because of that Su family who has nothing to do with me, you even sold me out. Are you my biological parents? Su Yang's accusations became louder and louder, her voice filled with grievance and anger. Su Qian smiled sarcastically and said in a sharp voice, Since you were born in the Su family, you should help the Su family solve their problems. What about you? Su Yang shouted angrily, You are the heir of the Su family, why don't you sacrifice yourself for the Su family? Shut up. Yu Chunlan shouted, How do you talk to us? How do you talk to your sister? Chapter 25 You are not worthy of talking to me. Su Yang knew from childhood that Yu Chunlan and Su Hai were partial, but she didn't know they were so partial. When Yu Chunlan was pregnant with Su Yang, the B ultrasound showed that it was a boy. Later, she went to a fortune teller, who told Yu Chunlan that a girl with a strong fate would squeeze out the boy who was originally going to be reborn into Yu Chunlan's arms. Yu Chunlan and Su Hai didn't believe it. Who knew that the baby would really be a girl? For Su Hai and Yu Chunlan, Su Qian is their sweetheart. And Su Qian was the one who was fighting for their son's life. Su Yang, I don't care what you think, but since you've already slept with Mr. Wang, you can't let him sleep with you for nothing. Su Qian lifted Su Yang's chin. She had long wanted to destroy this delicate face. Su Yang raised her hand and wanted to slap Su Qian again, but Su Qian grabbed her hand and said, I advise you to be honest. If the Su family falls, Grandma won't be able to treat it anymore. You. Su Yang didn't expect Su Qian to be so despicable that he actually used his grandmother to threaten her. Grandma is the best person in the family who treats her well, and she can't just ignore her. Didn't Mr. Wang tell you? Jiu wasn't with him last night. Jiang Jiran smiled contemptuously and stood in front of Su Qian. I'm so sorry, your plan failed. Su Qian yelled, Impossible. I clearly saw Mr. Wang go in. You can just make a phone call and ask to find out whether there is one or not. Jiang Jiran said. When Su Hai heard this, he became very anxious and took out his cell phone tremblingly. Before he could make the call, Wang Dehong called. Boss Su, your good daughter beat me up last night. Wang Dehong's angry voice came through the receiver, I can't afford to cooperate with your family, you should find someone else. Mr. Wang, please listen to my explanation. Before Su Hai could continue speaking, Wang Dehong hung up the phone. You rebellious girl. Su Hai angrily scolded Su Yang, come with me to apologize to Mr. Wang. Su Yang's eyes were filled with sadness. That's impossible. I just escaped from the fire pit last night. I will never jump into it again. Do you think you can still live such a comfortable life if the Su family goes bankrupt? Your grandmother's medical treatment costs 10,000 or 20,000 yuan a day. Without the financial support of the Wang Group, how can we afford her medical treatment? Yu Chunlan pointed at Su Yang with her finger, and her eyes didn't look like she was looking at her daughter, but rather like she was looking at an enemy. Grandma is your biological mother. How dare you say such things? Su Yang was really about to collapse because of her own family. How could people be so shameless? Su Qian and Su Hai took advantage of Su Yang's inattention and pulled her out. Jiang Jiran tried to stop him but failed, and was stopped by Yu Chunlan instead. Jiang Jiran was pregnant and didn't dare to argue with Yu Chunlan, so she could only stumble along. The Su family's community is a villa area, and each family has a single family villa. No matter how Su Yang struggled, she couldn't break free from Su Qian and Su Hai's restraints, and they pulled each other out the door. Chuang was leaning against the car smoking a cigarette. Before he finished it, he saw his wife being held hostage. Jiang Chuang threw the cigarette casually at his feet, walked over and pulled Jiang Jiran to his side, and stretched out his hands to stop Su Qian and Su Hai. What's going on? Jiang Chuang looked straight at Su Hai, but spoke to Jiang Jiran. They want to sell Su Yang to someone else. Jiang Jiran held Jiang Chuang's hand tightly, as if he had grabbed a life-saving straw. Now only Jiang Chuang can help them. Su Hai shouted, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business. This is our family affair. What a coincidence. What I like most is to meddle in other people's affairs. Jiang Chuang raised his lips, and that unconcealable gangster aura emerged again. Su Hai has seen countless people, and the young man in front of him is probably the younger brother of that big brother in the underworld. People with shallow backgrounds like this are the easiest to deal with. You should also see whether you can afford to take care of it. Su Hai acted like the president of Su Group, trying to put pressure on Jiang Chuang, but Jiang Chuang was even more arrogant than him. In City C, there is nothing I can't take care of. Su Qian snorted lightly, and her disdain was clearly expressed. A man who drives a Mercedes worth more than 500,000 yuan dares to brag in front of the Su family. Boy, if you dare to meddle in this matter, I will make sure you can't survive in City C in the future. Su Hai said viciously. Jiang Chuang raised his thin lips slightly, revealing a hint of sarcasm, you try it. Su Hai had never met such an arrogant young man. Before the Su family encountered problems, in City C, except for those at the top of the pyramid, even Wang Dehong had to give him some face. Su Yang had never told the Su family who Jiang Jiran married. Even when the Su family was in crisis, Su Yang never thought of asking Jiang Jiran to ask Jiang Chuang for help. It seems that I will have to rely on Jiang Chuang's power today. A group of people stood at the door and refused to let anyone go. Su Qian quietly walked aside and called Qin Haodong. The Qin family lived not far away, and Qin Haodong came over soon. Qin Haodong is Su Qian's fiancé, the young master of the Qin family, which is several levels higher than the Su family. Jiang Chuang refused to leave, and the three of them had no way to deal with him. The best thing to do was to call Qin Haodong over and force Jiang Chuang to leave. Haodong, help us get rid of this man. Su Qian pulled Qin Haodong's sleeve and acted coquettishly. Qin Haodong. Su Yang closed her eyes sadly. This man was supposed to be her fiancé. Yang Shi. Qin Haodong couldn't help asking when he saw Su Yang's pale face. The viciousness in Su Qian's eyes flashed away. Yang has offended President Wang, we are going to take her to apologize. Haodong, if President Wang doesn't cooperate with our Su group, it will be a loss for your Qin family. Seeing Qin Haodong's hesitation, Su Hai spoke up and gave Qin Haodong a strong dose of medicine. The adopted child of the Qin family dares to come to help the Su family. Jiang Chuang was holding a cigarette in his mouth nonchalantly. He was about to light it, but he held back when he thought of Jiang Jiran next to him. Everyone's expression changed. It's not a secret, but not many people know about it. Qin Haodong is the child of Qin Feng, the president of Qin Corporation, who adopted him from his younger brother. Qin Feng's son was kidnapped when he was a child. The couple had been unable to give birth to a son for many years, and could not find their biological son, so they adopted Qin Haodong. Who would have thought that Qin Feng's real son was found 2 years earlier? Qin Haodong's position in the Qin family became very embarrassing. You are not worthy to talk to me. Tell your father to get out of here. There was an evil look in Jiang Chuang's eyes and eyebrows. Qin Haodong was extremely angry. What a big tone. Qin Haodong had met people from the upper class of City C, and he was very sure that there was no such person as Jiang Chuang. People who speak wildly are most likely pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. Qin Haodong waved his hand, and a dozen men in black suits surrounded Jiang Chuang and Jiang Jiran tightly. Jiang Chuang. Why is it such a big deal? Chapter 26 If you don't come, I will collect your body. Jiang Jiran approached Jiang Chuang nervously. It seems that the Su family is determined to give Su Yang to Wang Dehong. Ran, you guys go. Seeing Qin Haodong calling so many people to stop them, Su Yang was afraid that Jiang Chuang and Jiang Jiran would be implicated. Jiang Jiran looked at Jiang Chuang worriedly. Jiang Chuang squeezed her hand and gave her a reassuring look. Jiang Chuang's habit of being frivolous came back again, and he said with a playful smile, you guys just called for help, how about I call one too? Stop talking nonsense. Qin Haodong looked at Jiu Chuang as if he were an enemy. Few people dared to mention the fact that he was an adopted son in front of Qin Haodong. Go ahead. Qin Haodong gave an order, and the men in black suits rushed towards Jiu Chuang. Jiu Chuang was fighting 1 against 10 and it was becoming increasingly difficult. Jiang Jiran stood by and watched Jiu Chuang being beaten down several times, tears streaming down his face uncontrollably. Stop it. I'm calling the police. Qin Haodong came to Jiang Jiran at some point and snatched the phone away when Jiang Jiran was about to make a call. Su Ran was forced into the car by Su Qian and Su Hai, but the car was stopped before it even left the hospital gate. A row of black Mercedes-Benz commercial vehicles parked in front of the Su family's door. More than 20 bodyguards quickly ran down from the car and knocked down all the men in suits around Jiu Chuang. The first person to get out of the Maybach at the front of the Mercedes-Benz convoy was Qin Haoang, the Qin family's recently found son. Then Qin Jialong, the president of Qin Corporation, also got out of the car with a stumble. Qin Haoang opened the car door and Xiao Moli got out wearing a white shirt and black pants, with a gloomy and terrifying aura around him. Although it was June, the weather still gave everyone present a chill. Jiang Jiran ran to Jiu Chuang, helped him up, and gently wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes full of heartache. Jiu Chuang was so happy that it seemed like the beating was worth it. Brother, if you don't come soon, you will have to help me collect the bodies. Jiu Chuang complained dissatisfiedly. I had clearly sent him a message a long time ago, but I am only coming to save him now. Qin Jialong was so angry at Qin Haodong that his chest hurt. This tactless and rebellious son, why did he have to pick on Jiu Chuang, the little bully of City C, when he could pick on anyone else? You rebellious son! Come here! Qin Jialong pointed at Qin Haodong with trembling fingers and roared. He almost had a heart attack because of this rebellious son's anger. Qin Haodong looked confused, not knowing what he had done wrong. Su Qian and others in the car couldn't sit still anymore and got out of the car one after another. Jiang Jiran carefully examined Su Yang's body. Apart from the red marks on the wrists and slap marks on the face, there were no injuries anywhere else. Jiang Jiran couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Jiu Chuang was very dissatisfied. I didn't see Jiang Jiran so nervous about me just now. It seems that I have to let her stay away from Su Yang in the future. Uncle Qin, are you here to take Su Yang to see Mr. Wang? Su Qian did not see the scene where Qin Jialong rolled and crawled out of the car. She never imagined that Qin Jialong would be so embarrassed just now. What nonsense are you talking about? How could I possibly bring Yang Yang to find that pervert Wang Dahong? Su Qian was confused by Qin Jialong's yelling. Sending Su Yang to Wang Dahong to promote cooperation between the Su and Wang families was a consensus reached with the Qin family. Boss Qin, what do you mean by this? Su Hai was the first to be dissatisfied. We discussed this plan together in the beginning. Qin Jialong tried desperately to wink at Su Hai, but Su Hai didn't understand at all. Su Hai said quickly, we agreed that our family would give birth to a daughter, and your Qin family would inject funds to secure the cooperation with Wang's. Why are you going back on your word now? Who told you that? This was your Su family's own idea. At a time like this, Qin Jialong would not be stupid enough to take on this matter. The guy behind him and the Avildor who was just beaten up are not people he can afford to offend. Jiu Chuang watched them fighting to the death like he was watching a play. It was so fucking exciting. Dad. Seeing that they were arguing more and more outrageously, Qin Haodong quickly interrupted, who are these people? They're these people that Qin Haodong referred to were Xiao Moli and his group who had been standing there silently like ice sculptures. Before Qin Jialong could say anything, Jiu Chuang kicked Qin Haodong in the stomach. They were all stunned by this sudden turn of events. Su Yang looked at Jiu Chuang's behavior of beating people without saying a word and was very worried about her best friend. I don't know if Jiu Chuang has a habit of domestic violence. You? Qin Haodong got up and wanted to kick Jiu Chuang back, but was held tightly by Qin Haoang. Brother, calm down. Qin Haodong hit Qin Haoang's back hard with his elbow. This ungrateful person is impossible to tame. If someone wasn't raised by you since childhood, then they are not close to you. Although he was adopted, he was also trained as an heir. Who the hell is this guy? Not only did he not help when his brother was beaten, he even tried to stop him. Dad, Haoang just watched me get beaten. And you tried to stop me. Even at this time, Qin Haidong did not forget to give Qin Haoang some eye drops. Qin Jialong was almost pissed off by Qin Haidong. Oh my god, I adopted him because he looked smart when he was a child. How come he became so stupid when he grew up? You idiot. Qin Jialong was about to jump up and scold his stupid son. Don't you know who you're hitting? Qin Haidong said disdainfully, Dad, don't be intimidated by this kid, he's just a street thug. Qin Haidong was so stupid that Qin Haoang and Qin Jialong could hardly bear to watch him. Boss Qin is right. Chuang clapped his hands to Qin Haidong. Boss Qin has seen countless people. He can tell at a glance that I am just a gangster. Qin Haidong's smug look made Qin Jialong want to beat him hard. Boss Jiu, you must be joking. Qin Jialong tried his best to smile. Everyone knows that you are the leader of the gangs in our C city. Please don't bother with your little son. Qin Haidong and the Su family were confused. The leader of the gangs in City C? Who is worthy of Qin Jialong being so humble? Qin Jialong slapped Qin Haoqian on the head. Hurry up and apologize to Mr. Jiu, this is Mr. Jiu. Qin Haidong and the Su family were all shocked. Mr. Jiu from Lianyan? The manager or vice president of Lianyan. It couldn't be the president of Lianyan herself, right? When Qin Haoang saw Qin Haidong's cute expression, he knew that he definitely didn't react, so he kindly explained. Boss Jiu is a brilliant boss. Buzz. Qin Haidong and the Su family's heads buzzed. Su Hai could hardly stand. How could Su Yang know Lianyan's boss? If I had known that Su Yang knew boss Lianyan, I wouldn't he have supported Wang Dehong. Wang Dehong is nothing in front of boss Lianyan. Chuang likes to see them like this when they know their identities. This unlucky situation of being unable to dislike him but unable to do anything about him greatly pleased him. Su Yang looked at how cowardly these people were and really wanted to laugh out loud. Chapter 27 Where is the household registration booklet? Mr. Jiu, I'm sorry. Su Qian's eyes were filled with mist, the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, revealing an extremely bewitching smile, and her voice was weak. We didn't know it was you, otherwise we wouldn't dare to do anything to you. Chuang looked at this woman whose expression changed faster than turning the pages of a book, and really wanted to give her 10,000 likes. Fortunately, my wife is not so hypocritical. The Su family's social circle needs to be expanded. Chuang replied with a smile. Amidst everyone's insinuations, the ice sculpture, Xia Moli finally moved. Xia Moli walked up to Su Yang with a clear goal in mind and asked a confusing question, where is their household registration booklet? Su Yang looked puzzled, and so was everyone else. Xia Moli asked in a light tone, looking straight at Su Yang with unfathomable eyes. Su Yang was frozen by the cold air around him and answered involuntarily, at my mother's. Yu Chunlan, who was named, shuddered and said quickly, I'll get it right away. He turned around and ran into their house to get his household registration book. Chuang was even more confused. Is this a new business tactic, asking Su Yang for the household registration book to acquire the Su family? Xia Moli didn't know what this stupid brother was thinking, otherwise he would definitely slap him to death. With Xia Moli, the walking ice-making machine, present, no one dared to speak. Chuang, who is usually sloppy and unserious, restrains himself a little in front of Xia Moli. After a while, Yu Chunlan took out the household registration book and handed it to Xia Moli. Identity card. Bing Jiaxia spoke again. R. Yu Chunlan looked at Su Hai for help, not knowing what this man was doing. Xia Moli raised his chin and pointed at Su Yang, I'm asking you. Su Yang immediately came to her senses and replied, in my bag. Let's go. Xia Moli raised his foot and was about to leave. After taking 2 steps, he found that Su Yang did not follow him, so he turned around and looked at Su Yang. Where are you going? Su Yang asked without any hesitation. Xia Moli looked at Su Yang's cute appearance, who looked very much like the kitten raised by his little niece, and couldn't help but curl the corners of his lips. Get a marriage certificate. What? Su Yang screamed out of control. This man is an alien from outer space. As soon as they met, he said he wanted to get a marriage certificate with her. Su Hai was the first to quit. This beautiful daughter was very useful to him, so how could he let her marry any man casually? I don't agree. Su Hai said. Sir. Su Qian was a little nervous in front of Xia Moli. This man had a very strong aura. My sister's lifelong event should at least be discussed with us and approved by us. Yu Chunlan chimed in, yes, the daughter of our Su family can't marry just any random person. There is a strong taste of disdain in these words. Jiang Jiran asked Jiu Chuang in a low voice, what's wrong with your friend? Is getting married so simple? This is the first time he and Juju have met. Jiang Jiran had never gone out with Jiu Chuang and was unfamiliar with his friends. Jiang Jiran had never seen this icy man before. What kind of man can he be if he asks a girl to marry him the first time they meet? Su Qian has sharp eyes. This man is wearing limited edition clothes and he hangs out with Jiu Chuang. He must be rich or noble. Okay. Su Qian thought for a moment and then said, it's not impossible for you to marry my sister. The betrothal gift is 50 million. These 50 million are just enough to solve the Su family's economic crisis. It's best for a man to have one, but it's no loss for the Su family if he doesn't have one. Nanfeng, give me the check. The Su family didn't expect that he would agree so quickly. 50 million is not a small amount. As a businessman, who can come up with so much money on his own? Moreover, he gave the betrothal gift to a woman he had just met without blinking an eye. Su Qian and Su Hai looked at each other and understood what the other meant. Su Hai stepped forward, put on a negotiating attitude, and said with a smile, Sir, what my daughter said just now does not count. Our Yang Yang is so outstanding, the betrothal gift must be at least 100 million. The Qin family, Jiang Jiran, and Su Yan all gasped. Is this a sale? There is bargaining. Su Hai is too arrogant. He thinks their daughter is a fairy and he wants a betrothal gift of 100 million. No family in the upper-class society had ever offered such a high-priced dowry to their daughter. Seeing Su Hai's shameless face and Su Qian joining him in cheating others, Qin Jialong's heart began to beat. It seems that Su Qian is not a good daughter-in-law. Jiu Chuang tried desperately to provoke Xiao Moli, brother, they are taking advantage of you. Xiao Moli looked at Su Hai, a hint of contempt flashing across his cold eyes. I have never seen anyone who dares to ask for an exorbitant price for me in my entire life. Xiao Moli's slender and handsome hands gently tore the check for 50 million that he had just written into two halves. Nanfeng. Xiao Moli's eyes flashed fiercely, make the Su group disappear in City C. After saying that, he picked up Su Yang and walked towards the Maybach. Just as Su Yang was about to struggle, Xiao Moli leaned close to Su Yang's ear and said, last night, in room 888, you were under me. Su Yang widened her eyes and quickly covered Xiao Moli's mouth with her hands. Jiang Jiran chased after her and wanted to save Su Yang, but Su Yang waved at her. Jiu Chuang also stopped Jiang Jiran, don't worry, Big Brother won't do anything to Su Yang. The Su family was completely frightened by Xiao Moli's words. They didn't even know when Jiu Chuang and Jiang Jiran left. Qin Jialong patted Su Hai on the shoulder and said earnestly, brother, you have lost an opportunity to let the head of the Xiao family be your son-in-law. The Su family all came back to their senses from their daze. The helmsman of the Xiao family, is it the Xiao family they know? Qin Jialong shook his head with a look of regret, my daughter has been in their circle for so long but she hasn't been noticed by that guy yet, how come your daughter has gotten such a good opportunity? Su Hai asked in a trembling voice, Xiao family. Is it the most powerful Xiao family in country Z? Qin Jialong nodded heavily, brother, you have offended the eldest brother of the Xiao family, so let's call off the marriage between our two families. Brother Qin, you can't add insult to injury. Su Hai said excitedly, Tian and Haidong's marriage was decided a long time ago. Besides, my daughter is now the wife of the Xiao family. The head of the Xiao family should consider the face of me as her father-in-law. Pucci. Qin Haoan couldn't help but laughed out loud. Su Hai doesn't even treat Su Yang as his daughter, so how could Xiao Moli treat Su Hai as a proper father-in-law? Qin Jialong also wanted to laugh at Su Hai's naivety and shamelessness, but he held it back. Brother, Xiao Moli and Jiu Chuang are not easy to deal with. Especially Jiu Chuang. You had someone beat him up today, do you think he will let it go? How could he let you go without biting off a few pieces of your flesh? Qin Jialong's words came from the bottom of his heart. After all, we have been partners for so many years, and it is time to give this foolish brother a warning.